Good evening. I now call to order the December 3rd, 2025 special City Council meeting. Tonight I'm joined by Mayor Pro Tem Bazagian, Council Members Albrecht, Weintraub, and Council Member Shapiro, who is joining us remotely, as well as our city staff here tonight. If you'd like to provide public comment, please complete a speaker card and give it to our city clerk. Members of the public who need hearing assistance can also request a device from our city clerk. We will now begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd ask our regular attendee, Mr. Richard Sherman, if he would lead us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
It's been moved by Councilmember Weintraub, seconded by Councilmember Albrecht. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
Actually, we need to do roll call.
What's that?
We need to do roll call.
Oh, because David's remote, we do need to do a
Yes,
remote
sir.
roll call, don't we? City Clerk, would you please call the roll?
I'll be happy to. Councilmember Albrecht? Councilmember Shapiro?
Aye.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Bazagian?
Aye.
And Mayor Kraut.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We did meet in closed session. City Attorney, do you have anything to report?
Thank you, Mayor and members of the City Council. We did meet in closed session to discuss all the matters listed on the closed session agenda with respect to labor negotiations, anticipated litigation, and existing litigation in the City of Calabasas versus the County Sanitation District, as well as the Mountain Restorations Trust versus the City of Calabasas. No reportable action was taken for any of the items.
All right, thank you very much. We'll begin tonight with a presentation of FM3 research survey results regarding priority issues in voter sentiment towards a potential sales tax ballot initiative. Our Community Services Director, Erica Green, will introduce the presentation. And we do, if you would, am I on the wrong script?
I inserted the wrong name.
Oh,
Mayor, I'll lead into that if that's okay.
My
please.
apologies.
Our city manager will introduce the item.
Erica would probably do a better job, but I'll start. Council, we had two study sessions, one in September, one in October, regarding a potential sales tax. Really what we're focused on, though, Council, is the city's financial and fiscal sustainability going forward. So with that, direction was provided by the council to conduct community outreach and also to bring in a firm that would do a community survey. We've worked with FM3 in the past. They have partnered with us again and recently completed a survey. And Richard Bernard with FM3 is here to present that survey. I'll turn the time over to him, and we hope to have questions from the council on this.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and Vice Mayor and Council and staff for inviting me to present the results of your voter survey. And I don't know if someone is able to put it up. Okay, great. Great, thank you very much. All right, I'll begin with methodology. We conducted the survey between November 6th and the 13th of this year. We interviewed a random sample of 367 likely November 2026 City of Calabasas voters based on their past voter history or if they've recently registered to vote. For questions asked of everyone, the margin of error is plus or minus 5.7. In some cases, we had a very long list of questions. We didn't want to overwhelm your voters, so we took a random half of the sample and asked them some questions, and a random half others, and in that case, the margin of error is a little bit bigger at 7.3. We contacted your voters by telephone, email, and text, and it was a dual mode survey, which means a random portion of the respondents took the survey online, and the other random portion took it on phone. And in fact, 48% took it on the telephone and the balance online. And we've had the privilege to conduct surveys for the city in the past, September 2023, January 2024, and May and June of 2024. And in one case, we asked a similar question, and so I'm going to show you the tracking results over time. And if you notice something doesn't quite equal 100%, I blame that entirely on rounding. All right, I want to start before I get into the ballot question, which is my major charge. We wanted to ask a conceptual question of whether your voters perceive that the city needs additional funds to provide the level of city services that residents need and want. And we gave them the option of great need, some need, a little need, or no real need. And some folks offered that they weren't sure and weren't certain how to answer the question. You'll see in front of you on this slide the tracking data from previous surveys that I had mentioned before. And what we did was we took the great and the some need and aggregated it on the right-hand side, as well as the folks who said a little or no real need on the right-hand side for comparison. What's interesting when you look at this data is that there's not been very much statistical change over time. You have 38% currently who think there's great or some need, with a modest 11% that think there's a great need. And we typically find a correlation between perception of need and level of support for a measure. So it suggests to me, and this would be sort of one takeaway, that it would be important for the city to tell your story in an effective and a continuous way so that voters understand some of the structural deficit issues that are approaching your city. Then we moved into the ballot question, which we worked with your legal counsel to vet to make sure that it was a legally permissible question. Ultimately, it will be you folks who decide what question, if at all, would be on the ballot. I'm not trying to get ahead of you, but our charge was to test something. So we took our understanding, working with your staff, of what the council priorities are, and also married them with the results of your previous surveys where we've identified your resident priorities from the previous surveys. I will never get an award for Shakespearean prose for that 75 words, but we were held to legal standards. And as you know, we were testing a general purpose 50+1. You could not promise that the money would go anywhere, but it will simply go into the general fund. So for legal reasons, we provide illustrative examples of what the money can be used for. And so you could see that question was in front of you was asked. It was based on a 1 cent sales tax, which your financial folks informed me would generate approximately $5.3 million annually. So we read it to them if they were on the phone, or they read it if they were online, and then we asked them if there were an election today, would you vote yes in favor or no to oppose? If they said they would vote yes in favor, we asked them, is that definitely or probably yes, because we want to know the intensity of support, i.e. the percentage who say definitely yes. And if they said no, we asked them, is that definitely or probably no, because we want to know the intensity of the opposition, that is the percent who are definitely opposed to this measure. And then if they were initially undecided, we pushed them a little. We said, well, would you lean yes or would you lean no? If they said they'd lean yes, we put them in the yes camp. If they said they'd lean no, we put them in the no camp. And for this particular measure, just hearing ballot title and summary, 6% said, I'm still undecided, I just really don't know. So on the initial vote, it was 61 yes, 33 no, and 6% undecided. If I could take a couple of seconds to kind of delve a little bit more into the data. The definitely yes on initial vote is okay. I've certainly seen a lot of measures over my 23 years doing this that have been successful in a general purpose 50+1 where it started a survey at 34%, but probably be about the lowest I would want it to be on an initial question. The good news is the definitely no is about around where I typically see the floor, around 20% on a ballot initiative. So that in terms of success of the measure, and I'm just here to tell you the viability, not to root yes or no on a measure, I would say it potentially could look viable. I'd like to look the margin error, which is plus or minus 5.2, and do a little margin of error test here in front of you. And that is taking the 61% and adding, for simple math, 5 to that. On the high end, it would be 66, and at the low end, it would be 56. I'll revisit this a little bit later in the presentation. We then asked them, I then wanted to show you the correlation between the great and some need and little need that I had shown you in terms of the question earlier in the presentation. You'll notice, I'll remind you, 11% said there was a great need for additional funds to provide the level of city services that residents need and want. You could see that percentage under the word great need. There was 27% in the previous slide that said some need, and 39% said a little or no real need. The more people perceive there is a need for additional funds, the more likely they are to support a measure. You've got a minority of people who do not perceive there's a little or no real need for funds. I would argue partly because it's a well-run city, and typically in well-run cities, they don't hear much about the problems. They like the quality of life they have, and therefore it has to be communicated as to what some of the challenges might be. We then moved on to ask about budget priorities. You'll remember in the ballot question that I presented to you, you see small, pithy examples of how the money could be funded, such as 911 sheriff response, prepare for and respond to wildfires, et cetera. And so we wanted to isolate every single one of them to really understand why your community is either supporting or opposing this particular measure. And so we gave them a list of 22 budget priorities, and of course, minus this measure, I would say this is always a good tool when you're having budget deliberations to really hear from your community as to what their priorities are in the community. So we said, regardless of whether you support the measure or not, how important would it be to include this provision or this use of funds in the measure? And we gave them the option of extremely important, which is a dark blue, very important, which is a mid-color blue. The dullest of blues is somewhat important, and the orange is a combination of people that said not too important or they didn't know. We took the extremely or very important, and we've aggregated that on the right-hand side and ranked it for the November 2025 results. Where we have asked this question before, you will see tracking data below each of the items. Of the 22 items, 2 are in the 90s in terms of extremely or very important, 3 are in the 80s, and 8 are in the 70s. And why that's important, you're thinking of the 50+1 measure, therefore you want to be able to reflect the priorities of your community, and in those items there's high consensus in terms of support. What you'll see in the subsequent slides is a strong emphasis on public safety, particularly on fires, probably not surprising given the tragedies our communities and our neighboring communities have experienced in recent times, both in terms of the Palos Verdes, not Palos Verdes, sorry, thank you, Palisades. I don't want to wish it on anyone else. Palisades and the Altadena fires. I mean, I live in this county. We all experienced it and know people who have experienced it. You could see among the top items is preparing for and responding to wildfires, and you'll notice an increase of 6 percentage points from May and June of 2024, which I think is reflective of the experiences that we all went through. Reducing fire risk by managing brush, other fuels, and natural areas, and then maintaining 911 and sheriff responses and helping prevent property crimes and thefts. As we go down the list, again, additional public safety elements are the priorities on the top 2 slides. And then as we go down to the third, and I believe this will be publicly available, so so if folks don't have it with you, you will be able to see it on, I hope, line or available at some point after this council meeting. Maintaining Calabasas' financial stability, repairing streets and potholes, protecting open space and natural areas, and maintaining parks are among the other items that are non-specifically public safety related. And so as the survey is simulating education to see the impact of education, I want to move to the messages that we tested. As you know, legally, the city cannot advocate but they can educate. And so we provided a list of statements and asked respondents to tell us whether, after hearing each statement, it would make them more inclined to vote yes on the measure. The dark blue is much more inclined, the bright blue is somewhat more inclined, and the words in the parentheses are just the themes of the messages, so you don't have to sit here and have me read a number of messages. But I will point out that a couple of messages really spike and really strongly, and the most striking one is fire mitigation. And that one I'll read because it really hits home on the priority here. The recent LA fires are a reminder of Calabasas faces similar wildfire risks as Pacific Palisades and Malibu, with 38% of the city's land made up of open space. This measure could fund wildfire prevention efforts, including weed, brush, fuel abatement, home fireproofing, and other strategies to reduce fire hazards and protect our community. 82% said they would be more inclined to vote yes on the measure, with a pretty heavy and strong 52% who said they would be much more inclined. That intensity I don't get to see very often. It really hits home the point. Issues, and I've heard this in terms of public discourse on the dais in your previous council meetings, about capturing this money before some other entity captures this money. That scored well in terms of intensity, and also another message about wildfires, where we remind people about the 2018 Wolseley fire as an example. Other items are related to the reducing crime and property crimes and accountability. People don't vote for a measure because there's accountability, but they will vote for against a measure if there isn't. So making it clear that the city is going to continue in its efforts to be accountable, transparent, it's consistent with who you are, and that you're going to ensure that this measure is going to show your values by ensuring strict accountability. That's a very important element. So what happens after we simulate education? You'll see two graphs on this slide. The initial vote, which you've seen previously, is the vote after just ballot title and summary. I described it before. It was a 61 yes, 33 no, telling them what the money could be used for, and also some educational messages about telling your story of why this is needed. Support goes up 5 points overall, and the intensity, the definitely yes, increases 4 points to 38%. I would have liked it to be in the 40s. That intensity is a little bit weak, and that concerns me. But if the council chooses to move forward and having more dialogue with the community, telling your story and listening to folks, there will be enough runway depending on which election, if and when you choose to move forward. If I look at the second vote at 66 yes, 24 no, 10% undecided, and use that margin of error test, I'm more likely to use it on the conservative definitely and probably, because we have told a pretty strong story. And there, the 60% for the definitely and probably, if I use that margin of error test of 5 for simple math, is 65 or 55. So you're above the margin of error, even in the soft vote. But I would recommend, you're smarter than me about your community, that you go out and continue to communicate. I know there's been discussion about November and June, so as a possible alternative election, which you'd have to have placed the measure on no later than the first week in March. There, the initial vote, it's a smaller subsample of the overall interviewed, because less people vote in a gubernatorial primary election than they do in a gubernatorial general election in November. So the margin of error is a little bit bigger. There, the initial vote was 54-39 yes, and after education it was 60-29. And if I use that same margin of error test on the more conservative definitely and probably, of 6.2, let's say 6 for simple math, on that 54, the high end would be 60 and the low end would be 48, below the threshold for passage. So if we look at the comparison on a line graph, where the blue bar, which is totally yes in the first question after ballot title and summary, and after education, the second question, the orange is the total no and the gray is the undecided, you could see that the differential between after education for June is much smaller than the differential in November. 60 minus the 29 is 31%, and 66 minus 24 is 32%. And so it also has a higher percentage overall. So while there are no guarantees at this moment, and that's all I can speak to at this moment, it's a little bit more risky to go in June than it is November, particularly since you have a runway to tell your story. Because if and when you place the measure on the ballot, the city is more restricted legally on what you can talk to the community about. So with that, I'll just sort of end with a few conclusions. The measure has a greater likelihood to pass in November than June. In November, we saw that the initial support was 61%, though the definitely yes was kind of modest at 34%. After hearing education, support increases. It's about at the 2/3, 66%. The definitely yes is a little bit stronger, but it then suggests education is really critical to be successful. The top priorities of your residents are primarily focused on public safety, such as fire, sheriff response, and the like, and so are some of the messages, but issues related to road repair and protecting of open space are also important, but they're sort of secondary in nature. And with that, thank you for your patience, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. Are there any questions from council? You want to start, Ed? Councilmember Albrecht?
Thank you for the presentation.
Sure, thank you.
I know how much work went into it, and this is not the first time I've seen it, so I had a chance to digest it. And I know we talked about this a little bit, but could you speak to the age group that you targeted and the reasons why? I think the community would like to know that.
Well,
I think we were talking
I'll
about
be
the-
honest with you, I didn't target anyone. It was
Well,
just a random group.
let's-
Do you want to know what the likely voter November demographics would be? Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, when you made your calls, when you went out
Right.
and did your research to call,
Yeah.
did you have a particular group,
Likely
a
no-
sweet spot, so to speak? That,
Well, I don't have a sweet spot. I'm just trying to be as objective as possible. What we do is we look at past voting history or if they've registered to vote, and I can tell you the demographics. If you're asking me who is more likely to support this or not, is that really your
that was
question?
going to be my next question.
All right, well then, I'll tell you, I'll answer both. So in terms of your likely voters, I'm going to need sort of quick math, but hold on a second. I may actually have it in a quicker form. So in terms of the age groups of likely voters, 18 to 39, about 25% are likely to vote. Of all the likely voters, 25% will be 18 to 39, 40 to 59 will be 31%, and 60 plus will be 44. And younger voters, and it's not unusual, are more likely to be supportive of a measure than voters who are a little bit older.
And how did you go about selecting the people to call?
Right, so we go to a voter vendor who works very closely with LA County Registrar of Voters. So we have a list of all your registered voters, and then we look at their previous activity in terms of voting, not how they voted, but whether they voted in elections. And so if they voted in a certain number of elections out of the last 3 or 4, they have a higher probability of voting, particularly in a general election, which is the gubernatorial election. And from there, we're able to look at the demographics by party, by age, by gender, and we make sure that the respondents' demographics mirror the respondents of your likely voters. If I gave you only the responses for Group A, and Group A only made up 10% of your electorate, this data would be crap. So I'm trying to mirror exactly what we anticipate the voter turnout will be.
Good.
I hope I answered your
You
question.
sure did, yeah,
Thank
because
you.
I didn't want anybody to suspect that maybe we're targeting a group that's not accurate or the average type of.
No one's
voter.
targeted here. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
I had one that came to mind as you were going through this. You have all these variables here, but the one that I think is most difficult is, on the November ballot, there's going to be a whole lot of tax type measures, bond measures. So on the June ballot, there's not, just the way the law is written. So in your experience, what is that effect of the voters seeing all this request for money?
Yeah.
Does it lower the
Right.
chance for success? Because that can't be really added into here.
It can't, though. Yeah, it can't. And in some cases, when we know ahead of time that there are certain measures on the ballot, such as state measures, we generally know ahead of time, we could put it on the question as well, right? If I was to do a tracking survey. But to answer your question, I first think about LA County because, as you know, we've discussed this, LA County is unique. It's the only county in California where the local ballot measure is on the top of all the measures. In all other counties, the local measure is the last one at the bottom. So the advantage is if someone is voting sequentially, and I realize if they're sitting at a kitchen table and doing it rather than in the vote center, they don't have to go sequentially. But if they are doing it, normally people go from top to bottom. Other than candidates, this measure, assuming it's going on, but that's in your hands, this is a thought exercise. If it were on the measure, it would be the first one. And the likelihood is that could buy it a couple of points relative to it being at the bottom, because there's a drop-off typically. Not a lot of people don't, or some small percentage of people don't look at every ballot item. They vote on a couple of things and then they're done. They're selective. The other thing is it helps that it's local and it's top. It's the top item. So they haven't spent their money. If you're thinking about all these tax measures, they haven't quite spent their money yet, right? And they're going to say, oh, this is my community. So I think that's advantageous. Overall, the more measures there are on a ballot, it becomes problematic. But I have only historically seen it get worse than get better. In other words, if sometimes my clients will say, not this election because there's too many on the ballot, let's do it on another election. At the end of the day, it's always more. You're right about June. There will be less things on the ballot and less turnout, but the demographics also will be a little bit different, right? They'll be a little bit more fiscally conservative and a little bit older, and those folks are a little less likely to support a measure. So you have pros and cons going in both ways, but your point is well taken.
Okay. That's it.
We had I think, 2+ hour phone call yesterday, so all my questions were answered, but I know you went over it, but can you just one more time explain how many people were contacted for this survey?
I didn't have, I mean, typically the size of your community, we probably try to contact everyone. We try to contact them through text, email, and phone. The key is, in terms of completes, we have 367, which frankly we've done the surveys in your community before. I think that was the highest number we were able to get because we understand your community and really helps. And some people might say, 360, we have so many more people, but it's random. And also it mirrors the demographics of, as I mentioned, likely voters. And so given the margin of error, it's pretty dead on. It's not just like a poll. Like people can be passive and take it, right? If I called you up and you were doing dinner, you're having dinner, you may answer it and answer the survey. But if we were to just push out the questionnaire, it would have to require that people are active to click on the link and do it, and then we wouldn't know their demographics. So, and to put it in context, if we were to do a statewide survey, I would recommend doing 1,000. If I were to do a countrywide survey, I'd recommend about 3,200. So maybe that helps put it in context.
That does help a lot. So, okay, thank you so much.
Sure, my pleasure. Thank you for the question.
Councilmember Shapiro, did you have any questions?
Thank you, Mayor. Just one brief one. Again, the questions have been answered, and we did spend, as mentioned, a good couple hours, and I peppered you with lots of questions and appreciated your responses. Just if you could clarify, you talk about the demographics again, setting up, at least in my understanding of the report, being much better, or at least better in November than in a potential special June situation, June election. for this matter, for this, if we bring it forward? And is that in large part because of the large amount of voters that will be voting at a national election rather than in a June preliminary election?
Sure. I think there are a
Primary.
couple of points to your question. One is the demographics. Typically, younger voters, less conservative voters, folks who only vote maybe in the general elections every 2 years, they tend to be a little bit historically more supportive of tax measures. But I also wanted to make the point, and I maybe I didn't make it clear in the presentation, so I really appreciate your question. It's clear that there is a sizable percentage of people who do not understand the need yet. If you are, and so your city attorney will keep me honest, if you are considering placing the measure on for the June primary, you have to place it on no later than the first week in March. And probably it would be February, given your council schedule. That gives you a very short period of time to press the flesh with your community, to go out, tell your story, communicate it. People have to hear the story a couple of times. One time it may not stick. They have to say, oh, I've heard this before, now I kind of get it. If you opted, again, not trying to get ahead of you, you're smarter than I, if you opt to go for November, it's the first week in August, and most likely it would be in June because I think the council is dark in July. So you would have until the last week or the last at least council meeting in June to place this on the ballot, and you'd have a longer runway to tell your story. The story is critical. You have a compelling story. The question is, you have to get out and tell people. Now, you know your community again better than I, so I will defer to you on how to best do it. And you have a communications team that can also consult with. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right, I have no further questions myself. Thank you very much for your presentation. Before we close, are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? See. Is that a yes? And Joe, you'll fill out a card after you're speaking for me?
I will.
Thank you, sir.
Right now, I'm doing it. But I am Joe Chilko, a longtime resident. I guess my question is that you talked tonight about a 2-hour conversation you had with this consultant that the public was not a part of. So was there anything within that discussion that you want to share with the public that you haven't shared already? And this particular presentation and the data in it would be very helpful to anybody who is trying to put out a message of support. So I would encourage you to make it available to the public.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Mr. Kilco. And because you are speaking on an agendized item, I can give you a quick response here. First of all, this presentation is available to the public, so it'll be available in our packet for download there. And as far as what we covered in 2-hour meetings, we each met individually. We didn't meet as a council beforehand. I want to make that clear. And although I don't know what questions the other council members had, for me, it was more trying to understand what's the implications of the survey and why we're doing it. And what became clear to me in those meetings was what you saw here tonight, the summary we asked for, which is that the measure has a possibility of passing here in the city. There seems to be support for it, but that support really needs to be bolstered with some outreach to let the community know what our story is. And it appears from the statistical survey that if we do that outreach, the measure would have a stronger possibility of passing. And the last thing we want to do is spend taxpayer money to put this measure on the ballot and not pass. As has been mentioned, we can advocate for this right until we put it on the ballot, and at which point we have to inform but not advocate. And so we're trying to get all our ducks in a row before we make a decision so that we have all the facts in front of us.
Okay, good. But yes, we've been saying it since we first heard the idea that you need to get out there and talk to people. And that's critical in terms of campaigns. Showing up at people's door makes a serious impression on them and shows them you're serious about making the effort. So it's important to do those kinds of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chilco. It looks like we have another speaker, Mr. Sherman.
Yeah, hi, Richard Sherman, Calabasas resident. I just want to echo what the survey people said, that Kindon Meek and other representatives from the city came to CPHA and spoke, and also the Calabasas Steering Committee. And in fact, today, at another follow-up steering committee, one of the attendees mentioned that with the survey itself, they would have answered it differently, but because you came, talked, explained, it turned from like neutral to very positive. So I certainly, I know it may be hard to get those speaking engagements, but I think it's critically important to explain to the public why it's so important, because it certainly changed. You got a lot of positive voters because of those two presentations. Thank you.
Thank you both. Okay, with that, we'll move on to our next agenda item. Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, did you have something to add?
You're a much better mayor. Council members, one of the requests that we do have at this time, and this was a presentation, but we do ask for some direction. So knowing that the information that you have is and this doesn't have to be a final decision tonight, but for timeline purposes, do you want us to proceed with education and outreach, preparing for a long runway moving towards November, or do we shrink that down towards June? Again, we need some direction as we start to, as Mr. Sherman, as Dr. Sherman mentioned, we've scheduled a number of meetings. We've met with HOA groups, we've met with steering committees, we've met with commissioners. We have a number of those lined up in January and February, including a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and some of our businesses. Our goal then is to start reaching out to the HOAs and having those discussions in the HOA board meetings and in neighborhood associations. What we need, I guess, to know is what our timeline is for that, whether we're looking at a February timeline or if we're looking at a June timeline.
Before we answer that, the city attorney, in order to put this on the June ballot measure, we would have to declare a fiscal emergency?
Yes, we would have to declare a fiscal emergency. Otherwise, it would have to go on the November ballot because it typically goes on the ballot where you have an election for elected officials.
Thanks. And the definition of a fiscal emergency again?
It's typically an imminent financial emergency related to a sharp downturn in revenues or potential long-term decrease in elimination of levels of service. It can stem from a natural disaster or one event or a series of events. But fiscal emergency does require a unanimous vote of 5-0, and it basically is defined as dire financial straits. So. Okay. And lastly, we did hear that it has a statistically better chance of success in November. So, Councilmember Weintraub?
I just have a question. When will we know what else is qualifying for the November ballot?
If I could answer that. So ballot measures have to be done before August, if I'm correct. And so we, as a city, we could take all the way up to August. However, as Dr. Bernard mentioned, we're dark in July and we don't meet until the second week of, the second week of August. So any other city, any other county entity, any other state agency has all the way up until the middle of August. I think it's about August 8th to put an item on the November ballot.
But there's some point where you could see if they've gathered enough signatures, so those have already met that threshold.
There's some. It's on the Secretary of State's website.
And
if anyone has not taken out a petition by now, they're not going to have enough time.
so the ones that have taken out the petition have received this, have verified signatures. some. What are those measures?
Well, I looked about a month ago.
Yeah, what,
There's not very many that where they've counted the signatures and they can verify. There's a couple.
but are they, like what will we be competing with?
Oh, well, there is the three tax measures I mentioned.
Right, but what are those three? Not to put you on the spot.
One
What-
of them requires a city to have a 2/3 vote.
So it's not asking the residents to approve a tax?
No.
Okay,
It's limitations on a city's ability to tax.
And what about the others?
There are some bond measures, but those can also be put by the state legislature up until like the end of spring, so we won't know for sure. Those aren't going to appear up there.
But it doesn't seem like there's going to be another measure on the November ballot that would impact the local residents.
The county could put one on
That
up
would be
until,
that would be the only one, but we'd have a great argument why people should support the city one versus the county. Right?
I would argue that.
But I'm
I
saying,
mean-
so it doesn't look like the competition is as steep as it might be in November, even though the ballot could be full. Anyone?
I mean, the county has many months to act. It could
Right.
it could come all of a sudden.
Right,
No
but-
other city's one would impact us.
Right, in the state, so, okay, my vote would be November then, even with these other things. I think we'll have a much better chance of educating the community in the right way.
Yeah, November seems to be the better selection here.
Okay. Councilmember Albert?
You know, I know originally, we wanted to get this as soon as possible, and June seemed like a great idea. But it was pretty clear with your support on polling and learning that the education component is essential. And I can speak only from my own recent personal experience. I've met with at least 7 or 8 individuals on a one-to-one basis that were adamantly against the tax increase, adamantly. But after about 45 minutes of conversation, I let that person talk through what they felt and how let their anger out a little bit. But after we got into listening to the reasoning behind it and why we have this structural deficit and how we're going to repair the structural deficit, they became an advocate. So I don't think we have enough time if we put it on June. I just think we got to go with the odds, regretfully, but I think November would be what I would support.
Thank you. Councilmember Shapiro?
Yes, I'm not going to repeat everybody's comments, but I do see clearly from this report, the initial survey, the benefit to having it November, giving more time, giving more the ability to educate and speak with the community, answer questions, and let people know exactly what's going on. And I've never been a big fan or supporter, frankly, of the idea of a fiscal emergency anyway for June. So for me, it would be November between the two.
Okay, and I would agree with all of those. So it looks like you have direction for November. And I would just ask that now that you know the timeline, if you could prepare a schedule of outreach that includes organizations that you'd like to meet with and speak at, publications, mailers, all of that stuff, so that we could see in advance what the plan is and help you formulate going forward.
I love it, Mayor. You took the words right out of my mouth. We already have that in place, so we'll revise that timeline and present that to the council moving forward.
And how we can help get out in front of the community.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay, great. Moving on then. We're moving on to item number 5, which is the Sheriff's Crime Report for September 2025. This will be presented tonight by Deputy DeMatteo. Deputy DeMatteo.
I've got October, sir.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to have to go back upstairs and get the script for this month because I'm like missing it all over the place here.
October, right? Is that all right? Well,
It's
that's what I
October.
got. And that's
All right.
what I'm going to present.
October it
so.
is.
All right. Deputy DiMatteo, Lost Hill Sheriff Station. We got the crime report for October 2025. Let's get into it. We did have 22 Part 1 crimes for that month. We did see a reduction of 14% compared to the previous year. We did have one robbery. This incident took place outside the Wells Fargo Bank on Calabasas Road. The victim exited the location with a bank bag containing $2,600 in cash. Before the victim got to his vehicle, he was approached from behind by a male adult suspect who used bodily force to take the bank bag from the victim. The suspect entered a waiting vehicle and fled the location. The suspect's vehicle was identified via flock. However, those suspects used license plates belonging to a different vehicle on their car for that crime. It's currently under investigation. We did have one assault. This incident took place in the parking lot at one of our middle schools, unfortunately. Witnesses observed a child being struck numerous times by their parent in the drop-off line. This investigation is being conducted by the Sheriff's Special Victims Unit. We did have 4 residential burglaries. 2 of them I wanted to outline, which occurred in the greater Molewood neighborhood. They occurred 29 days apart. So one in the beginning of the month, one at the very end of the month. And very different methods of these burglaries. The first one, entry was made in the evening via the backyard and second story. Miscellaneous jewelry was taken. Those are the common burglaries that we're seeing by the professional crews. The other burglary occurred during the middle of the day. Entry was made via a side gate and a side window. High-end purses and cash was taken. So the victim, or the suspect and the victim likely knew each other in this instance. We did have 5 vehicle burglaries. 4 of the 5 occurred in retail or commercial parking lots. The other occurred in a residential neighborhood in the Las Virgenes area. We did have 1 theft from an unlocked vehicle. This occurred near the Malibu Canyon Apartments. We did have 3 grand thefts. 1 incident, again, involved copper wire from the Mulholland area. The victim in that incident was AT&T. They've been notified, and we're working to make sure that doesn't happen again. There were 5 petty thefts. These include retail theft and the classic porch pirate, package theft. It's back. Holidays, people are getting more packages delivered to their house, and people are out there looking for unintended packages to take from you, unfortunately, for whatever reason. So yeah, that's my crime report. Any comments, questions, or concerns for October?
Should we start with Councilmember Albrecht?
Thank you very much. I really enjoy getting the report. I delve over it because I want to see trends, and there have been a number of trends. It's been getting better. You know, in large part, a lot of the areas seem like we've got control. They're not improving, they're getting better. But I wanted to make a note about, on the noteworthy incidents, 3 of them had to do with LPRs, the license plate readers from Flock. And I'm so glad to have that. You know, the city's adopted this program and it's paying off. But when you mentioned that the vehicle had plates that belonged to another vehicle, well, these cameras also recognize the paint of the color of the car and the model of the car. So there's still another way potentially to put 2 and 2 together. So just want to remind you, I'm sure you know it anyway, but bring it up. And then one other item was the burglaries. You know, they're down 20%. It's pretty remarkable, despite, you know, what's going on. So I'm not sure if we could do more of whatever we're doing, or we're doing enough as we can, as much as we can, but it's nice to see. So I just want you to know we see it, and I appreciate it, and the community appreciates it.
Yeah, I mean, we recently caught a burglary crew just on Calabasas Hills Road, right down the street from the sheriff's station. So Flock helped us out with that one, let us know that a vehicle who was being driven by somebody wanted for burglary was in the area, and deputies snatched him up.
Yeah, so if they're going to change plates, maybe they will find out the model and the make and the color is still available.
Yeah, so Flock will help us out, even if they put, so we call these cold-plated vehicles. When you take a license plate from somebody else's car and put it on your car that you're going to commit a crime in, it's a cold-plated vehicle. So the person whose license plate was stolen doesn't know it yet. They just haven't realized it yet. So it's probably the stolen license plate happens right before the crime is committed. So it's not in the system as stolen. It won't recognize it. They try and steal plates that are consistent with the vehicle they're driving to commit these crimes. So, but yeah, Flock will still help us out with the make, model, and color of that vehicle, which can be used for information with other departments to see if they've had crimes from that vehicle in their areas.
Yeah, match it up. Thank you.
Councilmember Shapiro, did you have any comments?
Just to thank you very much. I appreciate it. And Ed, actually, you just talked about the one item I was going to mention, which was the arrest. So great job. Keep safe. If you have any additional tips through the holidays, obviously we're coming up to vacation and holidays for everyone, what you might advise the community, as always, be greatly appreciated.
Yes, sir. Theft typically increases during the holidays, so just be aware of your surroundings. If you're shopping and you're alone, watch out for the distraction scams. That's going to increase. Watch out for package theft. If you can, have your package delivered somewhere where you need a signature to get your package, or have somebody else, a neighbor, pick it up for you. And then when you're shopping, just don't leave valuables in plain sight in your vehicle. That gives thieves the crime of opportunity. They probably aren't going out looking for a crime to commit, but hey, if they see your wallet on your seat and there's nobody around, maybe they'll go for it. So just be aware of your surroundings and take care of your property.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
No, thank you.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Just wanted to say thank you, and I also wanted to comment on the Flock cameras. And I know when we put them in, we talked about that we would reevaluate if we needed to add more in the community. And I think this is a good opportunity, seeing how well they're working, to work with the sheriff, see if we do need to put up more. They're not that expensive, and I think we get good results.
Great results.
Great.
We love to have them. They're extremely beneficial for not only stopping criminals in the city, but assisting us in investigations after the fact.
So it'd be great if we can look to see if we need to put more up at different areas.
Is that before or after the sales tax initiative?
Before, public safety.
And I have no other questions on your report, but I want to thank you for showing up to our community event a week ago. It was great to see you out there in the neighborhood, and appreciate all that you do.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, Coffee with a Cop in Calabasas was very successful, and I did see the mayor make an appearance. We really appreciate that. Also attended CPHA HOA meeting and met up with some of their board members and physically walked the lake and recommended features to improve safety around the lake, specifically geared towards those electric motorcycles. And attended the Vista Point HOA meeting last night, which was very productive and successful. Very classy meeting. And the e-bikes, the e-motorcycles, we're still seeing them. I know over Thanksgiving break we saw a lot. Over Christmas break we're going to see a lot. Just one last thing before I go. I did pull over a 15-year-old on a very expensive electric motorcycle with a top speed of 80 miles an hour. So he no longer has that bike. So these bikes, they are not street legal. You cannot drive electric motorcycles anywhere in the state. They are they're off highway vehicles only. Doesn't matter if you have a driver's license. Doesn't matter if you're 25 years old. Cannot drive them, period. Thank you.
And if you could just finish up on that, what would the penalty be for the driver and for his parents in a case like that?
Well, you will be receiving a citation for driving without a license and driving out of class, because you need to have an M1 motorcycle endorsement. You will be receiving a citation for no insurance, no registration, no safety equipment such as blinkers and headlights and brake lights, and the works. And then the parents of these individuals, if your minor child is caught, will be receiving a citation. The code is 14607 of the vehicle code. And that is allowing a minor to operate a vehicle without a license. You know they're operating it, and you know they don't have a license. It's a very expensive fine, almost $1,000, and it could end up on your record.
Thank you very much. It
Thank
doesn't
you.
sound like it's worth the risk.
No, it doesn't.
Thank you.
Oh, any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? I have two.
Hi, once again, Joe Chilco, Calabasas resident. Now, I know that a lot of the copper thefts have been occurring on Mulholland Highway, and that is a multi-jurisdictional roadway. So in addition to the Lost Hills Sheriff Station, I'm wondering what kind of coordination is happening with CHP, which is another agency that is responsible for that area, and whether they're increasing patrols, particularly. I mean, these things don't happen during the day. They're all late at night. Thank you.
Would you care to respond to that, Deputy DeMatteo?
Hi, sir. So CHP's primary duty is traffic enforcement. They are law enforcement, so if they do see a crime in progress, such as copper theft, I would assume that they would stop and take action. However, again, that is not their primary duty. Their primary duty is for speeding and all those speeding complaints we get on Mulholland. So deputies do patrol that area. Most of those crimes happen around 3 in the morning, but we can't be everywhere at once, and sometimes we don't catch everybody. But absolutely, we do patrol Mulholland at those times, and a coordinated effort with CHP is unlikely.
Could you tell the public something that you shared
Tell them to come to the microphone. No, you can't.
about how flock cameras were used to catch somebody that was involved in theft of the copper?
Yes, so we did have, he mentioned, he wanted me to talk about a success story with Flock relating to the copper wire theft. So we did, a couple months ago, have copper wire thieves hit and steal copper in the Mulholland area. Flock identified a suspect's vehicle in that theft. Shortly thereafter, Flock alerted deputies that that vehicle in that theft had returned to the area. Deputies did search the area and located that vehicle and took somebody to jail for grand theft.
All right, thank you for that. Had another member of the public that wanted to speak?
Yes, hello.
Could you just give us your name and city of residence?
Yes, Dorina Shajari, and I am a resident of Calabasas. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and city staff. My name is Dorina Shajari, and I'd like to thank you in advance for allowing me the opportunity to speak in front of you this evening. All I've ever known is Calabasas. From the Lupins on the hillsides to my first movie at the Edwards Theater at the Commons, and the years where residents rode horses along Las Virgenes and kids walked down Mulholland to school. This city has been the only real constant in my life, and being part of the conversations that shape it is very important to me. After hearing the sheriff's report tonight, it's clear how important it is for residents to stay aware and involved, and that's part of why I'm here this evening. I'm currently studying public policy, law, and society, and that has made it even more important to understand how local government works on the ground. Informed and engaged residents strengthen a city, and that's the role I'm hoping to eventually take on within this city. I also see every day how many people are unsure of what resources exist and how to navigate them, not because they don't care, but because it's easy to feel overwhelmed or unaware, and that makes education and outreach especially important to me. An informed community is an empowered community, and even with all the tools available today, there is no substitute for human understanding and human involvement. My background is in legal support and community services, and I believe knowledge is power. Reports like tonight's from the Sheriff's Department underscore that point. Public safety is something we all experience, not just something we read or hear about, and staying informed helps residents feel less disconnected and more empowered. I appreciate the work that goes into these meetings and the focus tonight on community priorities and public safety. I look forward to continuing to participate, learning more, and finding more meaningful ways to contribute as I stay involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're now on to council announcements. Are there any announcements from the council? We'll begin tonight with Council Member Weintraub.
Just wanted to make sure that everyone in the community is aware of the meeting tomorrow night with Edison. It's taking place at the Calabasas Community Center at 6 p.m. You can attend in person or virtually, and it is really, really important that we have a huge showing so that Edison understands how the constant power shutoffs and long PSPSs really, really impact our community. I've surveyed and spoken to so many of our neighboring communities, and nobody has power outages at the rate that we do in Calabasas. So it's really important that we show up tomorrow night and really demand the answers from Edison about how they are hardening their equipment and what improvements they are making so that we have reliability with our electricity. And as I'm saying this, my power will be getting shut off in an hour and a half tonight, just for another long shut off that's going to last through the night with really no explanation. And these things just constantly happen. So please show up tomorrow night, either in person or virtually, and tell your neighbors and friends. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have any announcements, thank you.
Councilmember Shapiro?
Thank you. I was going to reiterate that Alicia just brought up. Since the last speaker talked about it, there are a couple of commission openings. So for anybody, commissioner openings, anyone who wishes to apply, in particular, there is a library commission position open, and also upcoming a Park and Recreation Commission opening, PRE, and those applications can be obtained and provided to our city clerk. And the only other thing I'll mention, and I'm sure Councilmember Albrecht will mention it as well, is we attended and helped serve the 31st annual Thanksgiving meal for seniors at Sagebrush Cantina, which our tremendous Calabasas Rotary Club and other Rotary organizations and students from schools all over helped volunteer. And there were over 800 seniors. It was tremendous. It was a great event. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Albrecht?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, it was a wonderful event. The Rotary has done this 35 years in a row, and it's just amazing. I've been a part of it now only for about 3 or 4 years, but the seniors are coming in by busloads. It's unbelievable. It's not just an event to eat, but it's a social event for them as well. So it's very warming, a good feeling. And the band was, as we used to say in the 60s and 70s, dynamite. And they were all over 70, and they were still rocking. It was really something. I just want to make a note of 2 quick things. One is Wild Walnut. I don't know if anybody's been there recently, but we've got a dog bone in the very front of it. And I want to thank our Community Services Department. It was paper mache when we saw it originally, when we were opening the park, and then they actually made a real dog bone. You've got to see it to believe it. So congratulations, it's just great. And so we're going to have bags for benches. The high school children, students are putting together a program that they've already had a bench there. They converted into the plastic bags into plastic for benches. So Monday at 11:30, if you'd like to see the dog bone and you want to go contribute to the bags for benches, I know they'd appreciate it. And that's my report.
All right, thank you. I'll throw out a couple more. First of all, we've done a lot to protect our city, especially keeping an eye on that landfill that the county operates just outside of our borders here. You too can help. Make sure that you're not putting any hazardous waste in your household trash, there is an e-waste collection at Albertsons coming up this weekend at 10 a.m. So if you have any, they'll take batteries, they'll take electronic wastes and other things. You can check the details on our website. There's also programs that we have through Waste Management to do bulky item pickups and pick up things like paint and other things at your house. So please look into each of those programs. The easy one, of course, being Albertsons this weekend at 10 o'clock. More entertaining stuff coming up at 9 o'clock this weekend. We have at our Wild Walnut Park the Santa Paws photo booth. So bring your dog down. We'll get you that holiday postcard photograph, and it's free for the community. So please come join us. Next Saturday, the 13th, we're having a breakfast with Santa. That's $15 to register. You can find details on our website. And that'll be held at the Calabasas Community Center. And then the last one that I want to mention is next week at this time, we're having our city reorganization meeting where we're going to be electing a new mayor, and odds-on favorite is Mayor Pro Tem James Bazagian. So please come join us, and let's celebrate a great year. That's it from me. We'll move on now to public comments. This is the time for anybody in the general public to make comments on items not on the agenda. If you'd like to speak, each speaker will be asked to state their name and city that they live in, and they'll be allowed 3 minutes to address the city council on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. We are unable to respond due to state law, which prohibits council from addressing items not currently on the agenda. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on non-agenda items? I have 2 cards so far, and I'll begin with Matthew Shebby, sorry.
So my comment was for item 13 that we haven't gotten to yet, so.
Okay, we'll
I'll
call
delay
you
on
back
that.
up then.
But if I could address the Councilmember Weintraub's comment, am I allowed to do that?
You can speak at this time on any matter within our jurisdiction, but we can't respond to you.
Okay. So I'm going to try to show up tomorrow, but I don't know. Oh, you can't reply. If the city itself doesn't have power over the power company, and that's something at the state level, it seems like whichever Edison employee is going to show up and get hazard pay and off the record text with their coworkers about they're going to get tarred and feathered, and there'll be a big kabuki theater about how sorry they are. Can we get someone from the state to show up? Because the only thing that really counts is if the state is the one that can actually do something to the power company, and the state sees that they have unhappy voters. Is there enough time to drag someone to this Edison thing tomorrow so someone from the state can see unhappy we citizens are?
I'll just comment not to you, but
Not to me.
I'll revise my comment earlier. We engage all our state representatives on every Edison issue that comes through. Our state senator, state assembly member, so they're aware of the meeting tomorrow night as well.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, our next speaker is Mark Levinson.
Thank you, Mark Levinson. I'm the chair of the Chamber of Commerce and live in Los Angeles. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Tomorrow night also, we are having a holiday party at the Cambria Hotel. First session is for our Chairman's Circle. After that, at 6 o'clock, it's open to the public. So anyone that wants to appear, 6 o'clock is a good time. On December 4, we are having, that is December 4. December 9th is the Community Education Forum, which also is on Zoom. So it's an opportunity for the public to learn what is happening in the school district and in other private schools within the area. On December 22 is our Government Affairs Committee, and that is again on Zoom. And thank you, Councilman Albrecht, who generally appears with great questions and information. And then in January, on the 31st, we are having our installation, and it will be our pleasure to be installed. Well, first have the old board deinstalled and by the mayor, and thank you, and then immediately after the new board will be installed. So thank you for that. It's also my pleasure tonight to introduce Sam, who is an attorney in Calabasas, resides here. He's one of the rising stars, is classified by numerous other bar associations, his general fields, which he will explain more, but it's varied and intense, and everything I read about him and know about him, and after speaking to him, he's an excellent attorney, very involved in the community, the type of person we want to see. Thank you.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me. I'm Sam Borhani, principal attorney at Borhani Law Group here in Calabasas. We focus on criminal defense, traffic defense, and personal injury. We've been here for over 15 years. We serve the whole state, but Calabasas is our home. We help many local residents navigate the court system throughout the state. For us, it's important to serve Calabasas. Our family has lived here for 15 years. My wife, who's sitting here, RP, she's heavily involved in the Las Virgenes School District. She's also a substitute teacher there. And I look forward to strengthening our partnership with local leadership. And again, thank you for inviting me here tonight.
Thank you and welcome. All right, we are now moving on to our consent calendar. Do any of my colleagues wish to pull any items from the consent calendar?
Just for comment number 11, or quick comment.
Anybody else? Okay, so we'll go ahead and begin with item number 6 then. All right, that was Wildwood Park. And then item number 11, before we go to Councilmember Shapiro, I also have asked if staff would provide an update summary on the use of the new contract template for us.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So we've been working with the City Attorney's Office on revising numerous contract templates. But that we can't really slow down the work that we're doing, so we've been publishing, not too many, but a few RFPs, and we were using some templates that were still kind of in revision phase. And in those RFPs, we clearly listed that the contracts attached were samples and subject to change. And so here before you tonight, we had a contract that has been revised. And so it's been updated by the City Attorney's Office, and the revisions really just add structure and clarity to the contract. This particular contract is for on-call services, and so the scope isn't really defined. This is just as-needed work, and there's no impacts to the delivery of future work products or any scope of service impacts with the change in contract template. And with that, I'll just leave it open for the city attorney if she has any additional comments.
Right. The form for the on-call services that was changed does include further clarity, additional provisions that further protect the city and clarify the tasks and the obligations of each party. And we have a stronger indemnification provision and clearer insurance requirements. So that is the bulk of the additions to the contract template. But there's additional definitions that are included as well. And the exhibits are clear so that when we go forward with on-call services, it's clear to go specifically to the exhibits, and it's a lot easier to navigate through.
And we'll go to Councilmember Shapiro.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only comments, and I already spoke to the city manager briefly today, so hopefully, Curtis, you are aware of this as well, is since we are now going to have 9 consulting firms as an on-call agreement as per the item before us, I would like to see if this could come back. I don't know if it's an appropriate time, 6 months with an update or a status as to which consulting firms we're using, what purposes and what has been accomplished, just so we get an idea of what's being done and how much we are expending during that time.
Councilmember, that's a great comment. That's not a problem for us. We can definitely report back on the use of the list of consultants. I'd also like to clarify just quickly that this is really just an administrative efficiency tool, and it's for small to medium-sized projects. The larger projects that we do, for example, recently completed projects like the Green Street project or Old Topanga, Mulholland, the intersection work there, we're going to go out with separate RFPs for those large-scale projects. Again, this is just to really deliver small and medium-sized projects, and it will be used for projects that are already funded in the adopted budget or that we get grants for or local returns. So the impacts to the general fund are either going to be anticipated in the budget or there will be none because it'll be grant or local return monies that are funding that work. But we can
Thank
definitely
you
come
very
back with
much.
a report.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, any other questions on item number 11? No, with that, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Weintraub, seconded by Councilmember Bazagian. City Clerk, can you call the roll?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Albrecht? Councilmember Shapiro?
Yes.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bozajian?
Aye.
And Mayor Kraut.
Yes. All right, motion passes 5-0. That moves us to our public hearing, item number 12, which is adoption of ordinance number 2025-420, adopting the California Code of Regulations, Title 24, the 2025 California Building Standard Codes, Parts 1 through 12, with local amendments thereto. And presenting tonight is Community Development Director Michael Klein.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm also joined by Sparky Cohen, our building official. This item was discussed on November 12th. We answered a handful of questions. At that meeting, the council conducted the first reading, introduced the item, and then scheduled the public hearing for tonight. So the request is to open the public hearing, take public testimony, and then close the public hearing and subsequently adopt the ordinance.
Okay, before we begin, any council member questions?
This is the same version that we approved. It's 4-1 vote, correct?
Correct.
I'm just asking if anything's changed. I'm not going to say anything.
All right. I will now open the public hearing. Are there any members of the public wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none. Councilmember Shapiro, are there any at your location?
None at my location.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing no speakers, I will now close the public hearing. Does the council have any further comments? Councilmember Bazagian?
Just that I don't think we're bound by the Housing Accountability Act any longer due to the state's
All right, thank
crimes
you.
against the city, and therefore I will be voting no.
All right. Is there a motion?
So moved. I'll make the motion.
Second.
Moved by Councilmember Weintraub, seconded by Councilmember Albrecht. Councilmember Shapiro is pretty close, but I think it's the Wi-Fi lag. City Clerk, would you take the roll?
Councilmember Albrecht? Councilmember Shapiro?
Yes.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bozajian?
Nay.
And Mayor Kraut.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. 4-1, sorry.
I'm not a zero.
4-1, 4 to a half.
Count.
The item adopted is an ordinance. I will now read the title into the record and waive the full reading of the text. We've passed ordinance number 2025-420, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Calabasas, California, repealing Chapter 15.04 of the Calabasas Municipal Code and adopting a new Chapter 15.04 of the Calabasas Municipal Code pursuant to Government Code Section 50022.2 that adopts the California Code of Regulations, Title 24, containing the 2025 California Building Standards Codes, Parts 1 through 12, with local administrative amendments thereto, in accordance with California Health and Safety Code, Section 17958, adopting the 2024 International Property Maintenance Code, and adopting by reference the 2025 Consolidated Fire Protection District Code of the County of Los Angeles. Okay, we are now moving on to new business. Item number 13, the Calabasas Tennis and Swim Center fee schedule update.
It's been an hour and a half. Can we take a break?
Oh, should we take a quick break? I'm up for that. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you.
Tennis and Swim Center fee schedule update presented tonight by the Director of Community Services, Erica Green.
Thank you. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members, over the past 6 months, the city has partnered with Matrix Consulting Group on a comprehensive cost of services and fee study for the Calabasas Tennis and Swim Center. I appreciate the time each of you took to meet with me to discuss the study and share your feedback. Your input, along with the feedback from the community and the pre-commission, has been incorporated into the final recommendations. The purpose of this study was to better understand our true cost of providing services, evaluate how our fees compare to similar agencies, and ensure our structure supports the long-term sustainability of the center. The recommendation for the council tonight is to adopt the fee resolution incorporating the proposed fees. This evening, the Matrix Consulting team is here to present the study's key findings and recommended updates to the tennis and swim fee schedule and to answer any questions you may have. So the consultant is on Zoom. There she is.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. I'm Push Wingle, Vice President with Matrix Consulting Group, and I am happy to present the findings of our study. I will go ahead and share my screen and talk through the presentation. It's just a brief presentation that we've put together to talk through what the kind of goal of the project was, what the calculation components were, what the cost recovery goals were, what some of the proposed changes are, and a big picture summary of what's occurred. So like Erica mentioned, why do we do a fee study? What's the reasoning behind it? Really, it's to make informed decisions. We want to determine what's the true cost of the service that we're providing and understanding where that deficit or that gap currently exists. That helps create greater equity and transparency. So as we look at fee structures, we're determining, what makes the most sense. Do we need to have separate categories for seniors versus youth versus adults? And then, like I said, ultimately use that to inform, where and how you would like to set your fees, understanding truly what that cost is. So the scope of the study was to take a look at the current fee structure for the Tennis and Swim Center, make sure it's still appropriate if there were areas for consolidation, for expansion, for removal, things that are no longer provided. Again, just kind of making sure that we're truly representing all of the current services that are being provided by the center. Making sure that we have all of the appropriate cost components that we're considering. So staff, citywide overhead, and material costs, capital costs, so all of the different things that are required in order for those services to be provided. As Erica mentioned, we did do a market rate analysis. So we looked at other comparable entities that provide similar services. This was purely for informational purposes. When we're actually calculating what the cost is, we're really taking into account the city's cost for those services, not what those other agencies are charging, but it's just to give everybody an idea of similar types of services would be provided at this rate at other agencies. Like Erica mentioned, we did several different community engagement sessions. So again, wanting to make sure that we had that feedback. And then we took all of that and put it together in a proposed fee schedule, incorporating any sort of cost recovery goals and policies. So when we look at what were the key cost components that we looked at, it starts with taking a look at your staffing costs. And when we're looking at those staffing costs, we're looking at what your existing staffing levels are currently. So not, adding additional staff or changing any operational practices, just, what is it that it currently exists? And we take a look at the fully burdened rate of those staff. So not just what they're paid in terms of on an hourly wage or on a salary, but taking into the fact that they have benefits, that they have productive hours, vacation, sick, holidays for non-hourly staff, taking into account any sort of departmental and citywide overhead. So again, support from other entities in order for those staff to exist, because somebody's got to process their payroll, somebody's got to hire them. So all of these different overhead components. And then adding in any additional costs associated with the exclusive use of space for rentals or capital costs that are needed, again, to ensure that the facility is operating, and any sort of direct material or pass-through charges. So when we look at a big picture, taking into account all of those additional costs right now, based on the different volumes of activity, there's approximately about a $4.6 million subsidy. And again, this is not necessarily saying that right now the general fund is subsidizing the Tennis and Swim Center by $4.6 million. It's just stating that if no changes are to be made and all of the different cost components that are traditionally not considered when just a straight revenue to expense analysis being done, that this is what that subsidy currently looks like. So when we look at this big picture, what do we do with all of this information? We take a look at, what are the cost recovery goals? So we worked with Erica and her team and city staff to kind of identify what are some industry standard cost recovery goals for the different types of services. So as we mentioned, we want to make sure that we take a look at, what's that balance between community benefit versus personal benefit to help identify these goals. So something like rentals, which are much more an exclusive use of that space, you're going to see much higher cost recovery versus things for associated with seniors, who are usually on a fixed income, so they will see much lower cost recovery. So again, kind of that community benefit spectrum that we're taking a look at. So we take these community benefits into account when we're proposing where and how to set fees. So these cost recovery goals were used as the basis of determining where and how we want to set fees. So as you can see, for most of these categories other than rentals, there's really not that 100% cost recovery goal, because inherently community services, which the Tennis and Swim Center is part of, is typically a subsidized service because there is that larger benefit to the overall community. So when we look at the proposed fee changes, the biggest change to the structure is to the membership tiers and categories. So we'll spend a lot more time talking about this, but currently there's a wide plethora of categories and tiers and different combinations that you can have. And so what we did is we worked with Erica and her team to figure out, what makes the most sense, as well as engage the community to also get their input and feedback. So where appropriate, we took that into consideration as well. As we mentioned, the changes that are being proposed to be adopted at those proposed cost recovery goals that we talked about on the previous slide. And that's over a 2-year period. So you're not achieving that immediately in year one. It's phasing it in, because we understand that, again, there's been many years since this type of fee analysis has been done or considered. So again, we want to make sure that it's phased in rather than having that kind of immediate hit. So again, for simplicity purposes, typically we only show year one, but as we met with the pre-commission, they mentioned to us that they wanted to be able to clearly see both years changes, even though in the report and the resolution, it does list both the year one and the year two fee. So we did augment this presentation to include both components. So when we look at that current versus proposed membership structure, as we mentioned, currently there's 4 membership types, and then there's multiple tiers within those membership types. Under the proposed structure, we're proposing to streamline it. So kind of really taking away those 4 different combinations of memberships and really having 2 key categories, one that's fitness-based and one that's full access. And then for the tiers, kind of again, streamlining some of those tiers. We did originally consider eliminating the senior couple tier and basically considering them as 2 seniors or as a regular couple. However, in the community engagement feedback, we heard that, the senior couple tier is really important to the community. People utilize it. They want to continue to receive that subsidy and that support. So we did bring that tier back in. So this is a clear example of how we utilize that community engagement to make sure that we were understanding, what the goals of the community were. So currently, like I mentioned, there's 4 different categories. So the health membership type would convert automatically to the fitness access or the health and swim only membership. The non-primetime membership members would get the option to choose either converting to just the health and swim fitness access membership, or they could convert to the full access membership. So they would be given the option. And then the tennis memberships would automatically convert to full access. And then the weekend non-primetime membership is already set to sunset at the beginning of the year. So that membership doesn't really convert to anything. So when we look at the health membership categories, and if they're transitioning to automatically the fitness access health and swim membership only, as we mentioned, we're showing the current rate, we're showing the baseline cost. So the baseline cost is what the analysis showed that it's truly costing the city to have this membership. And then we're showing what the proposed changes are for year one versus year two. And as you can see that the baseline cost is significantly higher than what the current rate is. And in most instances, it's also higher than what the proposed rates are, because again, we understand that we're not trying to achieve that 100% cost recovery as those cost recovery goals change, stated in the previous slide. So for example, on this slide, you can see that somebody like the senior memberships, they would see in year one, a $7 increase, and in year two, see a $9 increase. So again, trying to be mindful of the impacts that would be felt to each of those groups. So making sure that there is that understanding of, as we're looking at this in a much more careful, nuanced manner, that even though it costs $101, we're not necessarily setting those fees at that $101. If the non-primetime members currently were to convert to the fitness access membership only, again, kind of similarly, you can see that there's different impacts to the different category types. So similarly, the senior category, only sees a $1 increase in year one and then sees a $9 increase in year two. The reason that there's kind of this difference that seems a little odd here, just want to kind of address that because I'm sure there's going to be a question about it, is because the current non-primetime membership rates, they weren't really used as the basis for calculating those cost recovery goals. It was the health rates. And so that's why on the previous slide, you'll see that the increases are a little bit more consistent, whereas the increases are a little bit less consistent on this slide because of what the current rate is, because this membership type is going away. But still, to the extent that that impact could be minimized, the goal was to try and minimize that impact. If the non-primetime members went to the full access, that is where they would see a little bit more of an impact immediately, because that's a little bit more of a different tier than what they're currently paying for. So that is why that impact is a much bigger jump than than the other two categories. As you can see, even then in the senior category, you're seeing kind of that first level increase in year one, but then no increase in year two. And then again, there's higher increases in year one, but not as many increases in year two. And then lastly, if we look at the tennis members going to that full access membership, similarly, again, the baseline cost is much higher than what you're currently charging. But again, to the extent that we can minimize that impact, somebody like the seniors only see no changes actually in their memberships across the 2 years. The adults see, a change of $10 and $12 across their membership type. So again, kind of looking at balancing out that increased membership rate compared to their current rate. So this tennis and swim center is not just the membership fees. There are a lot of other fees that are also charged by the tennis and swim center. So we wanted to spend some time just briefly talking through all of the other fees that were also looked at through this study, not just the membership fees. So if we look at some of the rental categories, so again, this is an area where, as we mentioned, there is that goal of 100% cost recovery because it is the exclusive use of this space. So as you can see, again, there's kind of that phased-in approach. So by year two, you're kind of hitting that baseline cost. But in year one, you don't see that cost right away. It's really kind of phasing it over a 2-year period. Similarly, for the open swim pool party fees, you'll see again that those are rentals. Again, you're getting the exclusive use of the pool, you're getting the use of the lifeguards at the pool, so you're getting access to all of this as part of this pool party. And the baseline costs again are much higher than what the current fees are. And again, that would be phased in over a 2-year period. So you can see that by year two, you'd hit that baseline cost because these are rental rates. If we look at the guest fees, the tennis court fees, and the fitness fees, you can see that again, in some cases, the baseline cost is a little bit more than the current fee, but again, there is still that proposed fee increases. So even in those instances, something like the rentals are going to that full cost, but the fitness class package, you can see that it's not necessarily going to full cost by year two. It is kind of still being phased in at a lower cost recovery rate because understanding the impact to the community. When we look at the aquatic fees, this is another area where there's quite a large subsidy. It's very common. We see this in the aquatics world all the time because it really does cost a lot to operate and provide these services. But so again, there are these proposed fee increases, but they are not necessarily hitting that baseline cost because the baseline cost is so much higher than the current fee. So the goal is again to try and phase in those increases, but not get to that 100% cost recovery. When we look at filming fees, that's an area where the goal is to get to that 100% cost recovery, again, because there is that exclusive use, that private benefit instead of a community benefit associated with those activities. So the phased in approach, by year two, you will hit that full cost or that baseline cost assumption. And then when we look at the last category, the miscellaneous fees, same thing. You can kind of see that there is that proposed fee increase, and by year 2, you're kind of hitting that full cost or baseline cost information. So if these 2-year phase-in fees are adopted, what does that look like? Basically, on an estimated revenue by year 1, you would see approximately a $1.3 million increase. So it's nothing to sneeze at. Additional revenue to, again, help ensure that the operations are going smoothly, that those capital improvements can be done, that those projects can be done. So overall, just wanting to reiterate that, the purpose of this analysis was not a process or operational study. We did hear a lot of feedback in our community engagement sessions and in the pre-commission meeting that, there was a lot of concerns about operating hours, about the types of services, the types of programs being provided. That wasn't necessarily the scope of this analysis, but city staff were present during all of those meetings. And I know they, really closely heard the community's feedback about those operational needs, but that was not the scope of this. All of these analyses, these baseline costs, were all based on kind of the existing operations that for the Tennyson Swim Center. As we mentioned, the community engagement that we did consisted of several different mechanisms. We had an online survey that ran for most of October through almost the end of November. We had 2 community engagement sessions, one that was virtual and one that was in person, again, giving everybody as much opportunity as we could. And like Erica mentioned, we also went to the pre-commission meeting. So where appropriate, we did incorporate feedback from everybody to make sure that that was appropriately represented. As we mentioned, the senior couple tier was a great example of that, where we had originally considered eliminating it, but based on feedback from the community, brought it back in. So ultimately, at the end of this, I believe the goal is to review this proposed fee schedule and consider it for adoption. Again, this will help capture as close as possible to the true costs. Again, understanding that we're not shooting for that 100% cost recovery for every single fee category or type, because there is that greater community benefit. And with that, I will end my presentation and open it up to any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any council questions? Councilmember Weintraub?
I have a few questions. I just wanted to know how many people were at the public engagement sessions.
Yeah, so the virtual one that we did had about 15-ish attendees, and then the in-person one had about 7.
Okay.
But the online survey had about roughly 285 respondents. So we did get a big response from the online survey.
Great, that's what I wanted to know. And then I just wanted to turn to our city manager and just ask if you could talk about what some of the improvements at the Tennyson Swim Center will be. I know that a lot of this increase is to fund work that we've already done, that we've already paid for, but I wanted to know what other type of improvements people could expect. So either Eric or Kindon, Jeff, whomever.
And council member, if I can, I'm going to turn to Erica on this one.
Thank you, Councilmember. Yeah, so the capital improvement projects that are scheduled for the Tennyson Swim are the electrical panel replacements that are original to the facility, the main water line, which is original to the facility, HVAC improvements, the roof upgrade, the upper deck of the pool, and finishing off some elements like the outdoor fitness area where we laid the concrete to expand the fitness area. And then there's smaller renovations, but the CIP, painting the facility, things of that nature.
Great, thank you. Anything to like the current workout spaces?
Well, we've done quite a bit. Jeff, do you want to mention that?
Councilmember Whitestrom, are you referring to like the fitness area itself?
Mm-hmm.
As Erica mentioned, there's a lot that we have planned, a lot of which has been front-loaded. Okay. You know, the pool, the lower deck has been done, the plaster has been done. We've done all of the tennis courts with the exception of the 2 smaller ones, which will be done in the spring. But in the fitness area, we've redone completely the cardio room. All of the treadmills, ellipticals, stationary bikes are all brand new. We have all new cable backbone to run all the TVs on there because there's numerous channels that the members like to watch when they're on the facilities. are using the facilities. We have new weight benches, new kettlebells, barbells, weight plates. We have 3 new leg machines that did not exist there before. We have a new cross cable machine that's recently put in. We have a new ab machine. So we have done a lot. We've taken our money as far as we can. There is more to do, but in the last year and a half, we've probably put $1 million into the facility.
Great.
From
I
the
just
money the
wanted-
council gave us to do.
Right.
to
I
make
just
the
wanted
improvements.
the public to understand what this increase will pay for that's already been done and the work that's still to be done. So thank you very much.
Certainly.
And I appreciate, after we had an initial conversation, some of the changes that came forth. So thank you.
Councilmember Bazagian?
Are these, do you want me to save my comments for later? Is that what it is?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay, so I have a number of comments. My first would be that the memberships that the tier memberships we created that are now in place, a lot of them were created to allow for greater numbers of members, which brought in more revenue and allowed people to come off the waiting list and allowed for people who had, say, who weren't going to get off of work until nighttime anyways to come just in non-prime time hours. If you change this, I think it's going to have a negative effect. A lot of those people will drop off, and then I'm not really sure, a lot of those night hours that could be used and that we could be getting revenue from, it's fairly empty in there when it gets later at night. I imagine it would be even later. Did anyone cross-reference that to see if it would really be saving money or losing money if you got rid of those memberships?
Yes, we did. We looked at attrition, how that would work, moving people into those other memberships and how that would work, and all of that came out to greater revenue than how it stands at this point.
But if you're losing those nighttime memberships, and you've only got a certain number of memberships you can accommodate during the day, you would have less actual paying members, wouldn't you?
Not necessarily. So we wouldn't be losing any nighttime memberships. When we're moving to this full access, they can come at any point. So if there are people that choose not to adopt this model and continue, we will pull from the wait list. And that's part of the idea with the whole model, is so we can pull people from the wait list.
Okay, but if you're pulling from the wait list, then what you're doing, if that works, if it does work the way you're suggesting, which I'm not sure it would necessarily pan out, you'll have people who come at night will no longer come. Then you're going to get a regular wait list of people, which will overcrowd the day, which was the reason we created the nighttime memberships. So how are we accounting for that when the facility is very crowded during the day?
So basically, we'll have less members, right? But we will pull from, when we sunset the weekend membership, we will pull from the wait list. We are going to monitor, we know the peak times at the facility. We will monitor the facility to see what the capacity is. We aren't going to pull in, 5,000 people day one. So we're going to monitor that. We know what times people come. We will look at those peak times. If there's overcrowding, we'll make adjustments. But from our research, we don't think that will be the case.
Okay. All right, Landscape Maintenance District 22, and you may not know the answers to this. We had a big dispute over that many years ago, over who was paying for the landscaping. What is the current status of that? I don't know if Curtis is here and maybe he can answer that. My understanding is the tennis center budget is paying for the landscaping within the center and even on the perimeter. Is that still the case?
That's correct.
Okay. One thing in the report, and I didn't know that the consultant was necessarily going to know this, but I was a little disappointed not to see referenced here. There's all types of questions about, well, residents complain that there's no preference given to residents, but the real answer to that should have been in here, which is that we can't, because the tennis center was purchased with grant money, which specifically required that there be no prejudice for or against people based on their residency. So I'm wondering, was that mentioned at the forums?
It was,
Okay,
yes.
good,
Yes.
okay. Maybe we could add that to either your report or here as an addendum so that people look at this online to the extent they do. And that should be front and center whenever that gets mentioned. Another thing in the surveys that I noticed, and I mentioned this to the city manager earlier today, it seemed to me that I realize there's not a lot of facilities like this around. Some of the facilities that you compared us to are not, in my view, comparable. A country club, or for lack of a better word, a more upscale or nicer facility. Ours is a public facility. It's never meant to be a country club atmosphere or something like that. Sometimes in these other facilities, you get other amenities, like you get free personal training sessions, which we don't offer. I mean, there's other things associated with the membership in addition to the facility perhaps being a little nicer. I don't know how you factor that in, but just to say that that facility is charging more, well, if we charge the same amount as that facility and it's nicer over there, I would think that members would leave and not stay at the tennis center if there's no benefit as far as a cost reduction. My main concern in all these comments is pricing out people and families that won't necessarily be able to afford to stay there. And it seems like they're going to take a really big hit in the next month and then another one next year when maybe we should have been gradually increasing it all along. No, we can't go back in time, but I prefer going forward to not have these increases over a 2-year period, but more like a 5-year period. And finally, one thing that struck me is that the film fees. That should be immediately changed. I don't even want a 2-year schedule for that. Our residents get no benefit out of subsidizing a for-profit film fee. That, as far as I'm concerned, on January 1st, you can raise it to the full cost. I mean, I don't know what you guys feel like, but that's not our residents. That's mostly people who are making money off of it and making a lot of money. Those fee rental facilities for that film purposes are very low, and our residents should not be subsidizing that kind of activity over there. So those are my comments. I'm not generally supportive of this fee schedule. I would be very supportive of changing and increasing the fees, but not necessarily in the way it was presented. Oh, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Shapiro.
Thank you. First of all, I'm glad to hear the public outreach and the public participation was so strong. And I know you met with various groups, you met with council before in doing this and revising it. And I appreciate the fact that you listened to and considered the concerns in revising this. And I'm glad this is spread out over 2 years, which originally the consideration was not to do that, I believe. And the second year captures a lot more towards the costs, the actual basic costs as indicated. So I do appreciate that. The concern's been mentioned. The largest increases clearly appear to be for families and couples. I think it's important, even though it's going into effect potentially very soon, the outreach and let the public know as soon as possible what's going on would be important, and explaining why. I want to say also a great job, and you don't get enough credit for it, and staff doesn't as well, for saving money on the resurfacing and redoing of the courts. Those are large, expensive items that you have been able, and I'm talking to both of you and staff, of course, but to save a great deal of money on over the last number of years, rather than going outside to do it. That is really something you should be commended for, and you don't hear that enough, but I want to make sure that gets said. The comments on the film permits, I actually would agree with Mayor Pro Tem Bazagian. I think they are low. I guess I was going to ask, my question was, do we make a lot of funds? Do we make a lot of money off film permits? They mostly appear to be, at least as far as the low end, are staying low on the courts themselves, certain courts. Do we make a lot of money off those film permits, or is there another reason why we want to maintain those at a low cost?
I can't speak to how much money we've made on those, but in addition to the filming permit, they do have to reserve the courts and the surrounding areas and the parking lot. So it is quite expensive to film at the Tennis and Swim. But again, we only allow that if it's not going to disrupt any operations. Jeff, do you want to speak more to that?
The last film that we had was a movie called The Dink, which was last year. I think it took about 4 days to film, but as Erica mentioned, they had the stadium court. They booked courts 1, 2, and 3 so to make sure that no people were in the shots. They had the parking lot. I think for that 4 days, it was about a $60,000 revenue to the city for those 4 days, and we were able to work very well with the film company to not impact the members. We did lose a few courts. We took some of the pros offline for some of our lessons, but the public and the members were still able to get their courts. They may have to wait a minute or two to get down to the lower 3 tiers of courts to get to the court that they're on between film shoots, but they were very good with that. They're very excited that there's a film shoot coming to the center. They were excited. It worked out really well, but it did generate about $60,000 for that 4-day period.
I appreciate that. And you mentioned parking. Is there a large impact of parking when you're bringing all those trucks and wherever, I don't know where else they're going to park, but in the center there?
Especially considering the time of year, yes. If it's the summertime, it'd be a huge impact because we already have a large, summer is by far the busiest time of year there when we have the camps and the lessons and the clinics and everything going. If the filming is happening like right now, it would not be that big of an impact. We typically put them in the dirt overflow lot for their setups, so that does help things out. Again, it depends on the year, and as Erica mentioned, if it's going to be a huge impact or detriment to the membership or to the city residents, we would not necessarily take the film shoot.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Thank you, Mayor. I thought we made some good comments so far. Very, very good. It's quite an undertaking. I got to compliment Matrix, compliment Community Services, because it's, the last big jewel of the city. It used to be shinier, but it's getting shinier again. And we've already done a lot of work to support changes and increases. The pool, for one, the entranceway is another one. I mean, you feel like you're really entering something that's worthy of repeat activity and membership. Having been a member there for quite a long time in years past, I was reluctant to leave my membership because the price was so good. So it was a teaser, but I heard mentioned tonight, we're not trying to compete like to like because we are a public facility, so we have to accept that. And we can't value ourselves if we're otherwise. But having new opportunities to repair and fix up, and that'll support the members that are waiting to come in. It's a convenience factor for everybody. It's our city's, or at least the East Side's, opportunity to work out. Look what we have at the community center. It would be nice to have one that's of equal value. And I know one of the things that I'm happy to have Matrix do something like this for us, because it was underpriced, we're catching up. So how do you catch up? You don't catch up by, clobbering increases. So I'm more in favor. I mean, I like to bring value up to the city too, and knowing how deep we were behind the 8 ball by not having increases, I'd like to see it over another year. I think 3 years would be appropriate. In 4 years, the reason I say that, 4 years, you're already going to get a turnover. People are going to move. They'll lose the momentum of what's going on. But if they are dedicated and they want to be there, that's respected in their membership. So the word came out earlier, retention, and this would be a retention tool. Telling people we know, and we're being as helpful as we can, but we also have to consider the city and our needs as well. The filming, I didn't realize we made that much money on it. I always thought of filming, I see it all the time in the neighborhoods. Sometimes they'll block a street off. Paul Revere is famous for that. We've had a lot of commercials being filmed on that. kind of like TOT, you know, you can raise it, it's not going to really hurt the neighborhood. But we're not involved in the negotiations with the producers, so I'm not sure how difficult it is when it comes to raising prices. You know, are they complaining? I'd have to be there and hear for myself, but I'll take your guidance. You know, if you think that's something we could do and raise it, that would be a nice opportunity. We don't have that many opportunities to have movies, and if we do, it's a big nut, so we don't want to lose that. But I'm very complimentary of all of this, and the hard work it took to create the tiers. The membership tiers are confusing, but we need to smooth over the transition. So there's only one way to do that, and that's maybe add that extra year. There's a lot of overdue repairs, that's for sure. So, you know, we have our hands full, but we can't compete as anything else except what we are. So, thank you for all the hard work.
All right, thank you. A couple of questions myself. Just remind me again, what's the percentage of non-Calabasas residents that are members of the Tennis and Swim Center?
As of this morning, Mr. Mayor, I ran the numbers. It's 41% resident, 59% non-resident.
Okay, and then our waiting list, how many people are on the waiting list to get in?
There's 3 waiting lists, one for primetime tennis, primetime health, and non-primetime, which non-primetime will obviously be moved up to the other tiers. If you add them together, there are about 8,000 people.
Wow, 8,000 people.
Now, some of those could be
Some
duplicates.
some might be
because
duplicates,
most everyone who's probably a non-primetime member, that was a shorter wait list to get in there, so they are probably on the health and the or full access and fitness access also, so there might be duplicates, but right now it's about 8,000 if we add them all together. But there will be some similar names on all 3 lists, and now it'll go to 2 lists. It'll go to full access and fitness access.
And about how long does it take somebody on those waiting lists to actually get to become a member?
Currently, under our current structure, our non-primetime is about 2 years. Our primetime health and primetime tennis are 4+ each.
So, you know, I would just, in looking at those numbers, I would have to agree that if we raise the rates, we are going to get some people dropping off. We're going to have less members. We'll have people from the waiting list join. Hopefully, it'll be a net of about the same, but even if it's less, if we have less members paying more money, and we can make more money and have less people, it sounds like it'll be good for the users as well. I do understand that by taking away the primetime, the non-primetime membership, we're taking away a category that I think that Mayor Pro Tem Bazagian mentioned, you know, might use a facility in the evening hours or such. We had a conversation, though, about managing those non-primetime memberships. You want to give our public a quick thought on that? I mean, with non-primetime members and pool members and swim members and gym members and tennis members and pickleball only members and weekend members, what's it like to manage all that?
It's quite a task, to be honest, because if you look at it currently, we have a roughly 29 tiers, and it's a lot to keep track of. So if you look at the full-time tiers, the full-time tennis, I don't think we're going to have much of an issue on that because those are pretty nominal fee increases to get the entire facility. Fitness will be the same thing. It is an increase, but again, they already have what they want. So you know, if they're not interested in tennis, they could stay on the fitness access. The non-prime time, I think 80% of them are going to be very excited about that, maybe more. I'm just speculating because I think they're on the prime time waiting list anyway. They got into the non-prime time tier because, again, that was a shorter list. There might be some that have some contention because the non-prime time tier currently gives you full access to the pool. So a lot of them call that the pool membership, which that's just what they call it. It's not what it is. So they may not be as excited because they already have what they want, but I think the vast majority of the non-primetime are going to be excited because they want primetime health or primetime tennis, now being called fitness or full access. They're going to want that anyway. So I think they're going to be excited about it. The weekend members that are going to be no longer members anymore are all going to be on those waiting lists, and they could still come in and pay the drop-in fee for the weekend, and they might get pulled in pretty quickly if we do have some attrition, because people do drop off if the fees are a little more than what they're looking to see. The list will be we'll get a lot of people off this list and we'll get them in quicker. So that's going to be the only bone of contention potentially, which would be the weekend members, but only 30% of the weekend members are residents, 70% are non-residents. And that's kind of what's dragging down our 41% number is the weekend, because we have such huge turnover on that. We may get 50 signups in a month, but we get 50 drop-offs in a month. And quite often someone will sign up and they'll drop off 2 months later because, well, it's not, I don't want to come on the weekends. I'm still on the waiting list for the 2 prime times. Just keep me on those. The weekend has huge turnover, and it's a huge amount of administrative work to process and then cancel these memberships. Like I say, about 50 per month each direction. So this will really streamline and help control how we're able to get access into the facility. Because if you look at the non-prime time hours Monday through Thursday are 6 to 8 a.m., then 10 to 2, and then they come back 6 to 8. So and people are always trying to sneak in and get around their tier, or they'll come in at 7:55, where the computer system says, yes, you are okay to come in. And so if it's not for human intervention saying that, okay, in 5 minutes you're not supposed to be here, and if we have a long line, it's very hard to manage. And at 8 o'clock, when all the phone calls come in to get the tennis courts reserved, now we're not going to have to worry about that. If you're a member, you have full access the entire time the facility's open. Whether it's full access for including tennis or just the health side, there's no longer hour tiers that we have to worry about anymore. If you're a member, you can come in anytime the facility's open.
Thank you for that. With the upcoming improvements, I do think it's important that we get this fee structure set so that we can get the actual cost back to the city here for a lot of this work that we've done a great job of improving the tennis courts and the surfaces and all that sort of stuff, the swimming pool. We really appreciate all the work that you've done. Unfortunately, we spend a lot more money on roofing, HVAC, and electrical panels, and nobody walks in and says, what a great new electrical panel you have. So I'd like to get those fees as quickly up to speed in order to cover those upcoming costs here. So I would strongly recommend that we stick with the 2-year plan that you have in front of us here. When was the last time we raised fees?
We raise them annually with the consumer price index, so the COLA basically. So annually we raise it probably 2 to 3%, but we have not done a significant fee study to my knowledge since
Okay, so
ever.
after the 2-year increase, will we be back to a COLA? Is there a procedure for doing that to make sure we don't slip back this way again?
Yes, we will still implement the COLA, yes.
Okay. And then the last thing I would say is before we tackle this item is the resolution says that the City Council hereby adopts the Calabasas Tennis and Swim Center fees as presented and approved by the City Council at its meeting December 3rd, 2025. I don't know if that's specific enough or if we want to reference Appendix A of the report as our fee schedule that we're adopting.
Yes.
And so that we could be clear, because there's a lot of information in the presentation.
Sure.
I don't think we can really attach all of it. So Appendix A comprises pages 12, 13, and 14 of the report. And that is the fee schedule that we're looking at here tonight. That would be my suggestion if we move forward with a resolution here. With that, I'd like to go ahead and ask if there's any members of the public that want to speak on this item. And if there are, come on up. Again, your name and city of residence.
Matthew Chevy, City Calabasas. I want to start with a few questions because I want to make sure that, because I don't have the raw data, that my argument comes from fact and not assumption. So I'm going to try to go slowly so everyone can follow along and double check my math. So to start with, in the aggregate, how many members are there currently of the swim and tennis club?
About 7,100.
All right, so 7,000, and you said 40% are city residents.
41%, yes.
Okay, so that's what, let's say 3,000 people? Or
I think it's 2,900 when I ran the numbers this morning.
All right, so let's go with that. So 3,000 approximately, first order magnitude, Calabasas residents are members. Google, which is never wrong, tells me that there are 23,000 current residents in Calabasas, meaning that there are 20,000 residents who are not members. I really only have 2 minutes. All right, I'll try to go quickly. And then another question then, on page 6, the results overview. Sorry, there's the column current revenue, and then the column that says baseline revenue. Is that really revenue or is that costs? I'm a little confused.
That's what the revenue would be if we implemented the new proposed fees.
Oh, okay, so that's a good thing. All right, so, and then the subsidy is, I apologize. So then what's the subsidy column? That's the last column of page 6.
So that's showing the kind of the gap. So the current revenue brings in the 4.5. If we raise the fees as what they should be to cover the costs, that would be, it's not necessarily a
So
subsidy.
you're saying right now there's a $4.6 million gap between the revenue and the actual cost of doing business? Am I understanding that column correctly?
Roundabout, yes.
Okay,
yes.
so this is my math that I'm getting to. So right now, for memberships, there's a subsidy gap of $4.3 million, meaning that.
If I could clarify real
Please.
quick, the 9.1 would be if we had the capital improvement projects in as well, which we are currently not doing because we don't have the funding. If we look at just baseline operations, we are very comparable revenue versus expenses. But to keep the facility open, we need to do, as the mayor mentioned, some of the projects that may not be the most glamorous, but we have to do these things. So
The grunt work,
we haven't
right.
spent this money, so we have not spent $9.1 million, but to get the facility back up and running,
Okay.
because it's all
So let's say
1968 infrastructure.
that's the case, and so there's currently I'm just talking about memberships right now, $4.3 million gap. Can I get another minute, please?
This is, I'm sorry, this is not meant to be a Q&A session. Our
Okay.
packets are published, but we'll let you.
All right, I'll try to be really quick. If I understand this math correctly, and if I'm wrong, right now there's a $4.3 million gap. If you do the current fee structure, you can raise the membership fees by another $1.3 million, which leaves a $3 million gap just in membership.
That's the first year. It's a 2-year tier.
Right. And so if you divide that by the 20,000 non-member residents of Calabasas, everyone who's not a member is floating a personal liability of $150 in the budget. I think that you can crank the numbers even more on one of the 8,000 people on the wait list. And if we really are in a financial crisis such that we need to do the sales tax, I think you need to crank up the numbers even more, because this is something of a white elephant if it costs so much more to run than we're actually getting. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody want to respond to that?
I had a couple of responses to what Ed said.
Yeah.
I realize I said 5 years, but I'm listening to what the council's saying. I think these are still very high, but I would be willing to do these increases over 3 years, a 3-year period. I just don't think it's, I think some of these costs are doubling in 2 years, and that's, that's just too much money to ask, and starting next month. So I'd like to do it over a 3-year period. I think that would be a fair compromise. Also, I didn't mean to say that I didn't appreciate the study. I do appreciate staff's work and the study. It's just that I disagree with some of the conclusions, not to say that I disagree with that it needs to be raised or that the work was done properly. So I would that would be my request, that it go over a 3-year period, not a 2-year period.
Okay, I'm going to go to the city manager.
Mayor and council members, a couple things just for clarification. One of the things I want to remind the community of is that the Tennyson Swim Center is operated as what's called an enterprise fund. And so again, that should not be subsidized by the general fund. And so as an enterprise fund, it should be self-sufficient. Raising the rates, as the consultant mentioned, as Matrix mentioned, there is some cost recovery allocations or reductions, because there is a service benefit to having teams and sports activities and recreational activities. Again, so the proposal isn't to recover the full cost, because we are a public entity. So again, it is an enterprise fund. It shouldn't be subsidized by the general fund. Second part with that, I think speaks to the 3-year rollout of this. The longer you roll out these fees or these increases, the more likely it is for the general fund to subsidize the tennis and swim center with these needed repairs. As Erica and Jeff mentioned, we have a number of projects pending. If you total that number up, we have $4.5 million in projects that need to happen today that just haven't happened. So even with revenues of 1.3 this next year, we can't even do half of the projects. And so if we elongate that over a 3-year period, that just means that anything that breaks down is subsidized or offset by the general fund, which, if we're looking at a sales tax initiative, you don't want to go to the public with an increase in sales tax to subsidize something that should be membership paid for.
Okay, I do have another speaker card here. I'm going to call on Francis Allette.
Francis Allette, resident of Calabasas. I just wanted to address something that James Bazagian said. I completely understand the hesitancy to raise some of these memberships, like the family memberships, which are going up, in some cases, it'll be over 100% in 2 years. I think those are the memberships that I think it's okay to sort of ease into it over a 3-year period, but I think the bulk of these are reasonable increases. So just wanted to chime in on that.
Any other council member comments? No? All right, I'd like to weigh in if I can then. Again, we have a waiting list of 8,000 people, or 8,000 possible duplicates. Let's call it 4,000. That's a lot of people waiting for years to get into our tennis and swim center. The reason to have a fee lower than market rate is because we're providing a service to our community. How can we be providing a service to our community if there's a wait list that's years long? So I really think that these things go hand in hand. And if we're looking at this big of an increase necessary to do something less than breaking even, that means that the people that have these rates have got a great deal going on. And I don't know if they expected it to last forever, but it can't. The fact is that this tennis and swim center needs more work. And our two choices, well, we have three. We can either raise the rates quick enough to pay for the work, we can let the place fall apart and potentially close it, or we can take money out of the general fund and truly subsidize it and pay for those repairs out of the general fund pocket. And of those three options, I really think raising the fees, raising them as quickly as practical is what we need to do. The 2-year phase-in fee schedule is what I'm certainly in favor of. I would not be in favor of extending that longer. We've heard a couple of voices that we're looking for a 3-year schedule. I think we're really looking for our two other council members to kind of weigh in here so that we can get a motion on the table.
You're looking to me?
Yeah.
No, just the same issue I've had from the beginning. It's really just the rates that are jumping so significantly. But I understand why we have to do it. I've been trying to crunch math numbers to see if a family membership would be cheaper if you did a couple and a child, or different different ways. Because to go from the current of $100 to $228 in 2 years is a drastic increase for that one. I know we fixed the senior one because that was another one that I was really concerned with, but that increase is fine. I mean, to me, spreading it out over 2 years or 3 years isn't such a big deal. It's just, for me, really understanding why those jumps are so big.
And do you want to explain how you chose what was year one and year two. It doesn't seem to be the same number, but a same percentage increase each year. Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, do we still have Kushbu on the line?
Yes, we do.
Can
Yes,
you explain
that
that,
is
please?
exactly correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, we took and basically tried to balance it. So yes, that it was the same percentage increase each year, not necessarily the same dollar value increase each year. So that way it's a little bit more like, oh, if it's a 20% increase in year one, it's still a 20% increase in year two. But obviously that 20% increase in year one is going to have a different dollar impact than 20% increase in year two. So that's where we took that into consideration. And yes, I think the family one definitely stands out as the biggest jump. But I think one of the other things to take into consideration is it does include quite a bit of individuals that can be part of a family membership. So when you think about it more kind of on a per person basis, like you were saying, it is a different kind of consideration than just a straight adult or straight senior membership. I think Jeff or Erica can correct me, but it includes at least up to typically 4 to 6 members in most family memberships. So again, kind of on a per individual basis, if you look at that, that's still quite a bit of a reasonableness. And that's kind of what we were doing, is trying to make sure that there's this reasonableness check from the perspective of who's benefiting and getting what access from each membership type.
Mr. Mayor, may I chime in on something real quick, sir?
You may.
Going back to what Kushbu was talking about, if you look at our current structure, if you look at our primetime tennis, an adult is $100. A couple is $122. So if one person is 100, a second person, which is going to use it just as much wear and tear, is an additional $22. A family up to 6 is an additional $40 total for up to 6 people. I think what the problem has been for all these years is that the couple rate and the family rate has been so out of whack that we really have to try and catch that up. There should be a discount for a couple and discount for a family, certainly, but to have $100 for one person and $122 or $22 for a second person, I think is not fair to the city. We really, to go on your comment, Mr. Mayor, where people say they know they have a very good deal, they absolutely know they have a very good deal.
Okay, well, I think the conversation is going sideways, because I don't think anyone up here is saying that we don't need to raise it or make it more comparable. My issue is with the timing. Next month, people are going to have to be deciding whether they're going to stay there or not. I mean, it's really coming up soon, and to say that we didn't raise it all these years and so now we're catching up is not a very persuasive argument to me, that we didn't catch it before. The thing is, I mean, you're pricing out some people where they won't now have a place to go, and I'm very concerned with that. So that's why I said a 3-year period. It wasn't in opposition to the increases or the changes. I mean, you didn't hear me say that. What you heard me say was just the steep increases so quickly. You know, people are already budgeting for next month. Now they're going to have to add this. It just seems to me that a 3-year period would be fair. And I don't think it's going to fall apart just because there's an extra year added to the increases. I really don't. I don't know what the panic is about. If it was that dire, it should have been brought to us years ago.
Councilmember Shapiro, we can't see you, but I want to know if you wanted to weigh in.
Okay, thank you. My camera's on, but you're probably lucky if you can't see me, so that's good. I would tend to agree with the mayor on this one, and this is something that we have been talking about for a while, and we asked for this survey to come back to us. So I appreciate this coming to us and being presented to us. I likewise am concerned about raising the numbers, and we discussed that when we had meetings and in public settings, as well as our individual meetings. And I think you addressed that because originally it was a much shorter time frame. I think based on the things we need to do, and as the city manager has just indicated, we are not supposed to be using general funds for these serious infrastructure matters that have not been addressed and need to be. I am supportive, as the mayor has already referenced and indicated his position in a 2-year, as presented by staff to us for the 2-year recommendations. So I am supportive of that. And this needs to be more of a balanced situation. I also note we have a wonderful community center, which has health and fitness availability as well for those who want. And I don't know that the numbers are that much different to go to one or the other, except this has swimming pool and tennis facilities / pickleball as well.
Sure.
So this discussion is very sensitive for all of us. I mean, I don't think any of us don't feel that the tennis and swim center needs a lot of work, and it needs the money. And I think we're all supportive of it. I just have an idea that maybe instead of going 100% in for the first year, why don't we go 66 2/3% and then add another third that we missed in the first year to the second year. So we'll put it in 2 years, but at least we can cushion it a little bit slightly to make feel more affordable. So I just want to see how other people feel about that
This is a 2-year plan.
as a compromise. So don't go in for 100% for the first year. We'll go in for 66 2/3%, and then we'll go in for 133 1/3% for the second year. Just take a third off and add a third on.
So,
So now we've accomplished it in 2 years, not entirely the way we would want on a funding level, but 2/3 of the funding level the first year, and then 130%, 133% in the second year.
okay, I'm going to go to our CFO, Ron Allers.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to remind the council where we are actually at in the Tennis and Swim Center Fund. We actually don't have any cash in the Tennis and Swim Center Fund. Tennis and Swim Center Fund is actually negative $500,000. So if we think about that, our general fund has a city council policy of having 50% reserves. We are at negative 10% reserves in the Tennis and Swim Center Fund. So we have the luxury of having general fund cash that is subsidizing tennis and swim. As Kendon mentioned, there should be no subsidy. There should be no general fund support of tennis and swim because we should run it as a membership and rental institution, and so that we can provide the services there, and we all know that it needs millions of dollars. So to stretch it out more just means that we have a longer general fund subsidy that's going to tennis and swim, and it takes longer to ramp up the cash to even pay for these capital infrastructure, which we all know they need to be done this fiscal year. Many of those items need to be done this fiscal year, and that's a few $1 million. And we've already spent millions.
I have maybe a solution.
All right, Councilmember Weintraub.
It's a little maybe too complicated, but for all the proposed rates, is everyone okay with almost all of them? James?
Yeah.
Minus which ones?
Well, the family one stuck out at me because that's increasing so much.
Right.
The film one, I said the other way, that I think it should just go up now. I mean, there's no reason not to. But the other rates
They're fine.
are fairly reasonable. I mean, the couple rates are a little bit high too.
So since no one's really having any issues with any of them but the family rate, is there a way to stretch that one out further or adjust that one a little so that we can move ahead with this?
And maybe the couple rates, because that's comparably, even though it's not doesn't start as much as a family rate, it's going up at that rate.
Because I know we want to get this done, and I think we should do it over 2 years, hearing what everyone's saying. And I think if we put so much to the second year, I think that's going to be troublesome too for people that budget. But I was just wondering if the family one, that's the one that's jumped out all
And the
along.
couple one too, isn't that?
The couple's going from $79 to $172. Right. that right?
Yeah, well, it's going up more than 100%.
Right. Could you stretch those two out over 3 years or just mess with those two? I don't know, how many members do we have that are couple or family? Do we have it broken down?
We do. We have quite a few members that are couple and family. But again, we're looking at it as if an adult is 100 and a family up to 6 is 300.
Right, but I'm not
That's-
looking at a family, I'm not looking at a family of 6. I'm looking at, say, like family of 3 or 4 or, right, but I'm saying regardless if it's 6 people, right now they've been paying $100 and now we're going to be charging them $228, even though it's a fair price. I'm not, I'm just saying in terms of people budgeting and planning, maybe we just stretch that one a little further.
We could do whatever the council
I
directs.
mean, I
us
would
to.
think those are the only two that I really have a problem with in looking at it. I mean,
Again, this is a policy decision, as Erica mentioned. Again, the problem that we have in doing that is we've just paid a consultant to help us clear up anomalies that have creeped into the system over years. And then now we're creating anomalies by
I'm saying one
by
more
changing
year,
this.
one more year, just so it's not so dramatic. I mean, that's a big increase.
I mean, granted, we should have maybe done this earlier, but that doesn't mean that all in a couple weeks, we're just going to start in and take this huge increase. I mean, I think that's a fair compromise.
I still like the idea of the 2-year increase and doing it across the board. And again, I go back to this waiting list. One of the complaints that we get all the time is that we have this waiting list that's years long.
At the current rate, though, it'll be interesting.
At the current rate, and what the result of what's going to happen is there will be an attrition. There will be a number of people who will drop off because it went from $100 up to $150 for a family. Of course, but there's plenty of people on that waiting list that would pay $150 for the family, because that's still a great deal.
I'm not looking at the 150, I'm looking at the 228.
Well, again, then the next year, they're going to, so they increase by 50%. 50% of 100 is 150. And then a 50% increase the next year to 228. That's the way the consultant split it up. It was a percentage increase. And yeah, we're going to get some more attrition. And certainly if we lose the entire waiting list this first year because of these rates, then maybe we'll recalculate the second year. But I don't think that's going to happen.
But aren't you then, what you're losing is people who can't afford it. So you're basically saying economic privilege, basically. There are people who can't afford this.
For the people that can't afford it, we have other options. We have the community center with different rates as well. That's an option for them. The ones that are having the hardest time would be youths and seniors, and those are still very strategically low. I think we've done a really good job of framing those there. And again, we're looking at, we are, as a city, if we don't raise these rates, we will be pulling money out of our general fund to pay for these repairs. And that money is going to come from people here tonight that don't have a membership because it's your tax dollars. And it'll pay for a club that's 58% non-residents.
Well, I don't see how extending those two categories for a third year and amortizing it over 3 years all of a sudden means that the general fund's depleted. I mean, that it's not an emergency situation like that. I don't think it is. It would be if we didn't do anything. You know, and there's some other things. You know, at the tennis center, there are some things that can be done there that can't be done at the community center. The community center is an indoor facility. There's no swimming pool, there's no tennis courts, there's no outdoor facilities whatsoever. So, you know, you totally eliminate that possibility for people.
I knew this was going to come up tonight like this because the city needs it. And I just think about the pipe, and I think about the electrical panel, and, you know, it could happen 5 minutes from now. But I also, you know, in looking at it, when I really think about the rate for a family 2 years from now at 228, it actually isn't bad. When you consider what we're paying for food and everything else, it's really not that bad. So, you know, it's a toughie. You know, I know how we all feel about it.
We need a motion at this point.
Yeah. You know what, in using common sense, I'm going to make a motion that we accept the fee schedule as is.
Okay, I have a motion. Can I get a second?
I will second that.
That was moved by Councilmember Albrecht, seconded by Councilmember Shapiro.
And that will include the amendment in the resolution that refers specifically to Appendix A of the fee report as part of the operative section of that resolution.
Can I make a friendly amendment? I don't even know if that's the,
That is a term.
no, I know it's the term. I don't know if what I'm asking qualifies as a friendly amendment. After these fees go into effect, if you see a huge drop in the family and the couple, will you come back to us with that information? Like, I'm going to support this because I know we have to do this, but like to get real data on if these current members ended up dropping because of this dramatic increase, and if at that time, I'd like to be able to revisit it.
Well, we should get the data anyways.
Right,
whether-
but I want to make
regardless.
sure that this can come back to us if we see current members who cannot go from $100 to $228, regardless if it's a fair price. So I want to make sure that that could be part of it.
So should we ask for an updated report in 3 months? Ed, would you accept that amendment?
I would.
Okay, so the motion has been amended. 2 parts to that amendment. First of all, just for clarity's sake, as our city attorney mentioned, that Section 3 of the resolution will be rewritten to refer specifically to Appendix A of the report, which is the fee schedule, on pages 12, 13, and 14. And second of all, that the Community Services Department will come back to us with a full report of members dropped, members joined, rates, and any other feedback that you have for us. Okay, with that, shall we take a roll call vote?
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yes.
Councilmember Shapiro?
Yes.
Councilmember Weintraub?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Bojajian?
Nay.
And Mayor Peter Kraut?
Yes. Motion carries 4-1. All right, thank you. We'll move now to item number 14, which is the City Council Annual Meeting Schedule, presented tonight by City Clerk Christy Buckskemper.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, I'm pleased to provide the report for the approval of the 2026 City Council Annual Meeting Schedule. I do have a PowerPoint, just waiting for them to bring that up. Okay. While they're bringing that up, I'll go ahead and continue. Each year, the council adopts a meeting schedule. The council's regular meeting dates, set by the city's municipal code, are on the second and fourth Wednesdays of each month, with exceptions for special meetings, holidays, and summer break. In 2026, some of the regular meeting dates may have potential conflicts with outside agency meetings, conferences, or fall directly on a holiday. I do apologize, there was a clerical mistake in the report. The 2 January meeting dates were listed incorrectly, so those have been fixed as soon as you can see my PowerPoint. There is no current conflict with the league conference that was listed in January. So I'll catch up here. There's the background. So that January no longer has a conflict. City Council open session meetings currently start at 7 p.m. In May of 2024, the City Council requested a resolution allowing flexibility in the meeting start time. A resolution was then adopted in June of 2024, allowing for council meetings to start at either 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. as set by the agenda. The corrected list before you shows the correct January meeting dates. And now is the opportunity for council to discuss and consider alternative meeting dates for any identified conflicts, as well as consider whether any adjustments to the meeting start time need to be made before adopting the final annual meeting calendar. This concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions or assist in any way throughout the discussion.
Okay, are there any council questions?
I have three potential conflicts that I want to discuss. One is May 13th, which is the beginning of the Contract Cities Convention, the annual convention, which several of us attend. I'd like to either eliminate that meeting or change it. The next is September 23rd, which you identified, Christie, in your report, where most of us will not be here because we're attending the league conference. And then the December 2nd meeting is also a conflict with the league's annual leadership convention and board meeting. But the leadership convention is the one like it's today, basically. I'm missing it because I'm here. And I'll miss it if I have to. But if we know a year in advance, perhaps we can change that one as well. As far as your comments on the 6 or 7 o'clock, I don't mind having the flexibility, which we have had in the past, times when we need to meet earlier. I do not want to go to a 6 o'clock open session meeting for two reasons. First, it would mean that we'd need, if we wanted to close session ahead of time, we'd need to meet here at like 4:30 or 5. And I don't think I think that's too early. Also, 6 o'clock doesn't really give the public a chance to return home from work, eat dinner, be with their families, and then come here if they want to comment or participate or even watch. So I think that would be a reason not to make 6 o'clock the standard meeting time. On a case-by-case basis, yeah, but not standardly. And then one question for you on this other thing that you put on the dais, the annual events calendar, has this been checked? Or have you checked this against the meeting schedule? And are there any other conflicts that I didn't see?
Yes, sir, it was fully checked. We verified all of the outside agency websites, their conferences that are listed on their websites, and then compared it with the meeting schedule is updated. That's why there's a printed copy there for you that has the revised January dates. And all of the council dates are included in there for comparison to see where the conflicts could be.
Okay, so those are my comments, but those three dates, one of which you've already identified, are conflicts.
Councilmember Albrecht?
Yeah. I checked on the religious holidays as far as Jewish. We had some conflicts last year and the year before, and this particular year there's no conflict at all. So, as it stands, I don't have any objection to any of the dates.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Shapiro?
Thank you. Can you hear me, if not see me?
Yes, we can.
I agree with what was said as far as the starting time. 7 o'clock is fine on select or very select occasions. If we need to start earlier and we can agree upon that down the road, then I am not opposed to that, but not as a regular scheduled meeting. And Ed just mentioned, that was James who mentioned that, but Ed just mentioned the religious holidays, which were conflict. I did not check Passover, and I'm counting on that Ed check that before I go any further, because I did check other holidays. I did not check Passover to make sure there was no conflict. The staff report indicates April 22nd as a potential conflict, which I guess would be for Mayor Pro Tem Bozajian, but you didn't mention it, James.
April 22nd is what?
League Cities Leaders Summit and Board of Directors.
I can go Thursday morning.
Okay, and that's not an issue.
I mean,
because I'm willing to move it.
Yeah, it's in Sacramento. I mean, I traditionally have done that and missed part of it. That's fine.
Oh, all right, and then September 23rd, yes. Generally, at least since I've been on council, that meeting has traditionally been canceled due to the league conference, so I agree with that. And the other date, which I think was given, was December 2nd. As a special meeting, I have no problem if we, I guess, if needed, find another date for that meeting. And otherwise, I have no conflicts that I know of now, although it's possible I'll be away for one meeting, but that's all I know.
Well, actually, I was going to mention that, you know, if council members know they're going to be away and they really would like to be there, I mean, if this far in advance, we can either change it or arrange for items not of substantial significance to be on those agendas.
Right, For myself, I don't have exact dates, but I will very shortly, I believe, or spring of next year.
Okay.
Councilmember Bazagian, I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Bazagian, would you like to make a motion to make a change here?
Yes, well, is your,
We'd need not only the conflict dates, but what you recommend, either drop the meeting or pick
on-
another date?
On the May 13th one, traditionally, we've canceled that. Ken, I don't know what you guys plan to bring around that time, but I would think either having it May 12th or May 7th, or May 6th, I guess it would be.
Yeah, at the pleasure of the council, we can move that if you needed.
I mean, is May 6th a problem for anybody?
It's the SCAG Regional Conference.
Oh, is that the
Yeah,
SCAG?
the next day.
I'll be busy.
Okay, so why don't we just for now, take off that? I mean, it's 6 months away. If we had to add it, we could add something later. But for now, that should be taken off, and we can take off September 23rd. December 2nd, because we don't have that many meetings during that time, I'd suggest December 1st.
And what's the conflict with December 2nd?
That's a league leadership thing. And I don't recall what city it's in now. That might be in Sacramento as well. I should know offhand. I can't remember.
We would also need an alternative meeting date for the November 11th. That falls right on Veterans Day.
The 10th was
The
what you
proposed.
suggested in the staff report. That's fine.
Perfect.
So the changes would be, for now at least, no May 13th meeting, no September 23rd meeting, change November 11th to 10th for the holiday, change December 2nd to 1st. Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, just looking at my calendar while we speak.
And Councilmember Shapiro, you mentioned, or you asked about Passover in 2026. That is April 1st through the 9th.
Right.
So what about what's happening with the 8th?
That's why I'm bringing it up, but I just wanted to get.
April 1st through the 9th?
Correct.
I think the 8th would be okay.
Okay. Okay, so the 8th should be okay?
Should be, yes.
Okay, city manager, any comments on the adjusted schedule that's proposed?
No, thank you. We appreciate the direction up in advance, and when we can prepare this calendar and get that to you so you can lock those dates in for both conferences and meeting schedules.
And look, like I said, I mean, if people need to, I mean, in an emergency, if we need to have a meeting, or if someone has an emergency that they have, we can do flexibility if we know many times in advance. But this schedule is good to have a year in advance. I appreciate it.
Okay, Christie, did you get those amendments?
So that's my motion.
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, the amended schedule has been moved by Councilmember Bazagian. Can I get a second? Seconded by Councilmember Albrecht. I'm sorry, City Clerk, would you take a roll call for us?
Yes, sir. Councilmember Albrecht? Councilmember Shapiro?
Yes.
And Councilmember Weintraub had to leave for the record. Mayor Pro Tem Bozajian?
Aye.
And Mayor Kraut?
Yes. Motion
Motion
carries
passes.
4-0. All right, thank you. We're now on to verbal reports. Does the council have anything to report?
Briefly.
All right, we'll start with Councilmember Shapiro.
Thank you. I attended the Valley Economic Alliance board meeting and also SCAG meeting today, and there are grants coming up and available, which I will share with city manager and others. And tomorrow is the economic summit for SCAG, and primarily focused on events and opportunities for cities, regions for the 2028 Olympics.
Okay, Councilmember Albrecht.
Okay, very little as we wind down Valley Economic Alliance. We had Finance Committee this morning, and our annual in-person Board of Directors next week. And Clean Power Alliance Finance Committee tomorrow, and after that, it's clear sailing all the way through to January.
All right.
Don't call me, I'll call you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, and I'll dovetail on what Ed said, that the Valley Economic Alliance, the city will be giving a presentation on its annual presentation about what's going on in the city economically, and there's a video presentation that I'll have staff forward to you guys, which I will be presenting on the 11th. The State League is having a board meeting tomorrow and Friday in Rancho Mirage, and I'll be going early in the morning. And then I should mention that on January 31st, the Calabasas Chamber of Commerce is having its annual installation banquet, which we'll all be attending, hopefully, and we will be installing the new board. Invitations will go out very soon, and I should mention that the Spirit of Calabasas Award has been won by a most deserving person, Mark Levinson, who's a faithful attendee at our meetings, and he should be congratulated, and it's very well deserved. So those are my announcements.
Thank you. I have nothing else to announce, so I'll go to our city manager.
Mayor and council members, just one item. We do want to welcome and recognize our new Deputy City Clerk, Eric Mesa. And so we encourage you to meet him. We're very glad he's joined the team.
All right. Well, if there is nothing further, then we will now adjourn to the next meeting of our city council, which will be the reorganization meeting on December 10th, 2025. See you there.